the world had in mind was undernutrition. Even sometimes we never thought that it is our problem. It always thought it is a problem elsewhere. You know, it's some kind of famine, and that is what came to mind. But this has changed. The world today faces a new nutrition reality. This we have come to call as double burden of malnutrition. The double burden of malnutrition is a situation where both undernutrition and overnutrition coexist side by side. Now we know that double burden is increasing, it's growing in numbers at individual level, at family level, at community level, and at country level. So this is such wide implication. Historically, overweight and obesity were viewed as problem of the middle and high income populations. It can no longer be labeled as a disease of affluence. In many countries in the Western world, it is the poorest who are selectively or more affected by overweight and obesity. India has the largest number of children and adolescents with undernutrition in the world. We know that a third of the world's stunted children live in India. But at the same time, we also have the second largest number of obese children in the world. And we have this dubious distinction when people refer to India as the diabetic capital of the world, because there are so many people with non-communicable diseases, including diabetes. Just to give you the perspective in terms of number to highlight the new nutrition reality, in 1975, there were just 11 million children and adolescents around the world who were obese. By 2016, this number has increased to 124 million, a nearly a tenfold increase. I mean, there are several drivers of this new nutrition reality, but important among them is the role played by food and the food sector. The food environment emerges as a common driver of a double burden of malnutrition. But we must also understand that there is a big shift in the way people procure, process, and consume food. This is further accentuated by the fact that there is rapid urbanization, more and more women are in workforce, therefore their dependence on market for food increases, and that is further uh, exacerbated by the fact that people are moving away from subsistence agriculture to cash economy, which in one way we all want. I mean, we want that growth, we want everybody to prosper, but that also brings in their greater dependence on the market for their food needs. So there is a shift in the food system from production to marketing. At the marketing level, there is a big consolidation of the food sector, and this sector is growing very rapidly. This is where we find, so the easiest thing is, of course, there is a big problem. The easiest thing, the villain here in this epidemic of overweight obesity, generally people point a finger at the industry. You know, the industry is the cause for it. Of course, we know healthier food environments are associated with greater intake of nutritious foods, but the real challenge for policymakers, researchers, food businesses is to really identify policies and programs and approaches that really deal with it in a right way. And that point of view, the panel that you have assembled, the various topics that you have brought, how you can make the food environment healthier is really laudable. And I appreciate for having put this to your thing. Uh, Consumers worldwide, we must also realize, have gotten what they asked for. They wanted cheap food supplies and more leisure time, and they really got it. Now, it's a challenge for the food industry to make the cheap food also nutritious. And I think the panel will discuss in great detail the implications of this. I would just stop there and leave it to them to say, but we must, uh, I can go on and say how difficult the environment is and how the Indian food process industry need to operate or what they can do. But I will leave it to the panelists. Each one of them are talking about some kind of an enhancement of the nutritive value and how it can be achieved of what has become an imperative. We can't move back to the olden days. You see, we need to process food if we have to feed the people in this rapidly urbanizing world. But we've got to do it mindful of the fact that the nutritional quality is maintained as much as possible. And at the same time, we need to look at the other drivers of obesity and overweight, that is, the physical inactivity and various other things associated. So, once again, I'd like to congratulate Mr. Raj Kapoor and his entire team and the SOCOM family as a whole. I now request Ashni to take over and introduce the panelists one by one, and I will looking forward to enriching my knowledge through their discourse. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I request Suniti ma'am to please come up and say a few words about the session and enlighten us with her knowledge.
Yes, thank you very much, Ashni, and thanks to Mr. Raj Kapoor and to ASOCAM and AIB team. I think it's a wonderful opportunity to, I think, learn from the panelists today. And because of having worked in FSSAI for a few years, 3 years to be precise, and I had I was able to gain a lot of knowledge on the nutrition and the necessity and the importance of nutrition in our life. Of course, I think Dr. Shankar has already laid out the map before us, and he has said that because of the such grave numbers that we are facing in India, especially of both undernutrition as well as the bad nutrition, I'll say the malnourishment, not the overnutrition. So I think it's high time that we as consumers also should now become responsible and maybe put pressure on the industry to serve us nutritious foods. And of course, with the very apt theme today, that is responsible businesses to serve nutritious foods, I think it has to be both sides. So I am really I think it's very pertinent, and it's very interesting that we will be able to hear from the industry also what kind of reformulation that should be done to improve the nutrition of the foods. Because although there is one thought also that, I mean, you could say, a very just take only the fresh fruits or fresh vegetables or fresh foods, and just kind of no processed foods should be there in your diet. But that's not a practical possibility in our lives. It's not possible that we can just go ahead with fresh foods with our lifestyle, with the and it's just not possible that we go back to that. But somewhere we have to have a balanced of both the processed, since processed foods is a part of our diet and will always remain. And in fact, the percentage of processed foods is only increasing in our diet. So while it's important, yes, that we should have fresh foods in our diet, fresh, local, which is of course more nutritious. But the emphasis on lowering these HFSS, especially in the processed foods, it is of great importance, I think, in this time. And we need to lay emphasis on this, because just by saying you take only fresh, don't take processed, this is not going to solve the problem. Processed foods are here, they will stay and they'll only increase. So how we are able to distinguish as consumers, as a layman, that yes, this is a food which is good, good for me, and this is a food which is not good for me. I think then the question of labeling may come. I think that maybe in the later, towards the end of the seminar, I mean the webinar where we are going to talk of labeling, will also, I think the role of labeling is very important in this, because for us who have a little knowledge, we may be able to read the labels more easily. But for a consumer, labels are, it's very confusing. They are not able to understand what is it's. I think that change also needs to happen. That shift is required. And of course, we all know that, I mean, unhealthy food is food which is high in fat, especially trans fats and saturated fats, high in salt, of course, which we are consuming almost double than what WHO recommends. It's 5 grams per day. We are consuming almost 8 to 10 grams per day. So we are, of course, there needs to be a lot of changes, and high sugar also. So I think it will be great to learn from everybody today, and maybe I will also be able to contribute a little later. And especially on the labeling part, I do have an interest, and I would really want to speak on that. So thank you, Ashni, and thank you to all the panelists and to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So now we are going to start with the presentations. So first I request Dr. H.M. Mishra sir to share his presentation, and he would be giving us a presentation on immunity boosting foods during post-COVID areas. So I request you, sir, to please take over and start with the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Asni. First of all, I would like to thank Mr. Kapoor and Asokam Institute of Bakery Technology for giving me this opportunity to be among this other people, learned people, and to share some of my thought on this important topic. So just give me 1 minute, I will share my slides. Okay, I hope you are able to see my presentation.
Yes, sir, we are able to see your presentation.
Okay, fine. So as was told by Asni that I am going to speak on health or immunity booster foods, particularly for post-COVID era, since the time is very short. So I will be a little quick and just maybe touching upon the important aspects. Okay, you know that even Hippocrates in the way back in 460 or 370 BC advocated that let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. And that concept even in now, today, in this era, becomes more important. Heidelberg recently in this year 2020 has stated that functional foods and nutraceuticals have broad potential for preventing the mechanisms of viral infections and modulating the immune responses. Okay, so immunity functions of the body, that is immune system, is influenced by several factors, including from obesity, smoking, alcohol consumption, exercise, stress, age, gender, genetics, etc., even early life events. But as far as the food technologists and food processors are concerned, the nutritional status and the diet, as my earlier speakers have also stated it, that is very, very important. That is insufficient intake of energy, macronutrient and specific micronutrients impair immune responses. In the slide here, I have just given some examples of that micronutrients, other things, particularly vitamins and minerals, which are important for the immune system, like zinc, vitamin E, C, A. They are important for the immunity of epithelial barriers. Similarly, for cellular immunity, vitamin A, B6, B12, C, D, E, folic acid, iron, zinc, and for antibody production, vitamin A, B6, B12, D, E, folic acid, zinc, copper, selenium, etc. Have an important role to play. They are important. Okay. So also the food contains various bioactive compounds, that these bioactives are naturally occurring chemical compounds. They may be contained in or derived from a plant, animal or marine source, and they exert, that these bioactive compounds exert desired health benefits. That is, so these bioactive compounds may be again vitamin, mineral, pigments, fatty acid, probiotic, prebiotic, flavonoids, okay, and so many amino acid, peptide, carbohydrate, fibers, and so on. So in our food and food processing, when we talk about we should take that is a healthy diet and good diet, it is basically the manipulation of these bioactives and antioxidants, etc., in such a way by having a suitable processing methodology, appropriate processing technology, so that these bioactives and these health promoting substances are there in the food. So the food system in the era of the COVID-19 pandemic, etc., of course, the sustainability, food safety, food security, etc., they are the important one which needs to be re-looked, addressed depending upon the situation, etc. But the important fact, as I told you, that the food which we should take, it should have more and more bioactive ingredients supporting human health. That there should be a shift from the traditional old diet to a diverse healthy diet. It should include more that is millets, etc., such other underutilized plant sources with health benefits, even food enriched with essential nutrients and bioactive compounds, and of course this rise of accordingly functional foods and beverages with health impact, etc. That will be, even the market potential has to increase. There will be a lot of demand in this. So the functional food, I told you, they enhance the physiological functions to prevent or to cure our diseases. It may be an industrial product like a symbiotic, nutraceuticals, etc. It is produced by industry with appropriate formulation, processing, and so on, or even the naturally occurring, which Dr. Shankar rightly pointed out, that naturally occurring even ingredient like those from the plant sources, animal sources, they are also maybe they have various bioactive and functional ingredients. Okay, so industrial functional foods, that is the prebiotic, probiotics, symbiotics, other nutrients, etc., like probiotics, certain live microorganisms, which when are ingested, they improve host health, and particularly that is they have the important role to play into the gut immune system, and they are most often used prebiotic lactobacilli and bifidobacteria, etc. Prebiotics are short-chain carbohydrates like fructooligosaccharides, fiber, inulin, lactose, sugar, alcohol, etc., which stimulate the growth of these beneficial gut bacteria. Symbiotic, of course, a mixture of prebiotic and probiotic. And in addition to that, so that it becomes an important formulation. In addition, that by fortification, by other methods, addition of minerals, vitamins, fatty acids, etc., should be added, which these will play an important role in prevention of the diseases, etc. So here there are certain list of certain functional ingredients like lactic acid, bacteria, etc. So these probiotics, they provide effect on the humoral and cell medicated immunity of host, enzyme digestion of the milk protein, gelatin, soya protein, etc. There is the proteins and peptides. They have antimicrobial, antifungal properties and immunomodulatory effect. Similarly, lipids and fatty acid like ceramides, eicosanoids, soya, egg, and wheat germ lipids, etc. They prevent coronary heart disease, diabetes, and all those. Even catechins, which are obtained in the tea leaf, black grapes, red wines, they prevent adhesion of various viruses and bacteria, etc. Many vitamins, many roles of play. So the ingredients, food ingredients, which are there, which have an important role against the viral infections like quercetin. It inhibits the entry of H5N1 virus, epigallocatechin gallate, it increases the viral and cellular membrane permeability. It is effective against Zika virus, HPV, hepatitis, etc. Curcumin, it binds to protein receptors of various effective against Zika viruses, HPV, hepatitis C virus, chikungunya virus, even polyphenols from sage, rosemary, etc. They are effective against SARS, COVID virus, HSV, herpes virus, even during absorption, etc. So the ingredients which are effective, particularly that against the COVID virus, are hesperidin, which are found in the many citrus fruits, rutin in apricot, cherries, grapes, buckwheat, etc. They inhibit the COVID-19 virus main proteases, and therefore their function, their propagation, etc. And then vitamin C, which are found in citrus fruit, vitamin D in mushroom, fatty fish, liver, vitamin E, which is can be taken from nuts, seeds, leafy vegetables, etc. They boost resistance to COVID-19, and also arachidonic acid, meat from microalgae, microbes, etc. They are the resistance boosters. Okay, are these they aid in recovery of from the SARS CO2 or SARS and other. So, but one thing very, as far as the industry is concerned, there are various ways that many a times we formulate the food, we prepare the food on the basis of the ingredients present in them. But really after processing, how much is there, whether the food is really functional or not, this has to be properly tested. Okay. And the correlation between particular food component and specific functional effects in the processed food can be established by in vitro studies or human cell lines. So this provides the basic biological information regarding nutrient, biochemical processes and interactions, animal models. It gives, it is a high degree of controlled diet is provided, and environment and genetics, all those things. It is also useful data is provided, but the most desirable study should be made on human clinical study. That is, human clinical studies must be performed for establishing any beneficial claim. So the regulations, I think there are clear regulations. There are many, even companies should provide credible scientific results to validate their claim. Although in our country, there are so many claims in some foods, etc. But I am really not very sure whether they have the sufficient database to establish their claim. In Japan, that is FOSU, is their European Union regulation, private claims that a food ingredient prevented disease, even when the claim is true. In our country, this is just still in its infancy. That of course FSSAI is working on it. They are responsible for the regulating nutraceutical health supplements, etc. But much more has to be done in this direction. So from the processing point of view, as I indicated you, there are certain challenges in this, like formulation. Okay, formulation, when we take different ingredients with bioactives and other components, etc. So we have to see that whether either you extract the component or as such the compounds can be mixed and food should be formulated. But what are their organoleptic properties, whether stability of their component within the ingredient food matrix, etc. Even the effect of temperature and other processing factors on the functional components, effect of processing aid like pH, etc., and even the method itself, technology. So all these becomes important functions, which is they provide a important challenge to the food industry. So if food can be more beneficial, either a particular ingredients, maybe that is health promoting entity may be added. Alternatively, that concentration of adverse component may be reduced. Okay, or there may be a partial interchange between the toxic and beneficial ingredients. So this approach can be used for the formulation. So regarding processing methodologies, as I told you, there are three important things. That is that there are certain methods: nanoball milling, ultrafine grinding, microfluidization, thermal treatment, extrusion, bioprocessing, fermentation, etc. These are the processes which are known to improve bioavailability and bioaccessibility of bioactive compounds present in food during processing. Then similarly, supercritical carbon dioxide extraction, pressurized low polarity water extraction, ultrasound assisted extraction, vacuum distillation, isoelectric precipitation, etc. They are the process which can be used to have to extract the bioactives with a good functionality. And regarding processing, the novel methods which prevent degradation of bioactive compound during processing or even during storage, etc., may include encapsulation, microencapsulation, nano-microencapsulation, pulse electric field processing, high pressure processing, etc. Okay. So after the processing, again the important aspect is that I will just take 2 minutes more, that packaging, because after the processing, packaging becomes equally important. It should be able to preserve and maintain the functionality of the food. That is, packaging should be able to protect the bioactive compounds during storage, during handling, etc. That is, they should accordingly, that the properties which are required by the packaging material for, that is to protect them from ultraviolet light. They should have suitable light barrier properties, water activity. They should have moisture barrier properties. Or microbial load prevention can be done by having a proper hermeticity or moisture control properties in the packaging material. And then oxidation processes like controlled O2 barrier, etc. So these are the some of the things, that is oxygen barrier packaging material, moisture barrier, and light barrier packaging materials are there. And here the active packaging, once the packaging material selection, and then you go for the active packaging technology, a modified atmosphere technology, where one can have a suitable releasing system and suitable scavenging system inside the package to regulate oxygen scavenging, enzyme release, antioxidant release, moisture regulator, or to regulate to provide antimicrobial surface, etc. Whatever the case may be, depending upon the requirement, one can go for this. Okay. This is the some of the food products which are, many of these are the patented technologies done in my laboratory, which are a few of them have already been commercialized, and many of them, they have the good functional properties, even health boosting, etc. So because of the times, I will not go into all those details, but if anyone is interested from the participants, we can discuss. These are the 3 books which has been brought out from my laboratory, and the functional food and novel food products and process innovation, etc. So these provide different information. So with this, I thank you all for your patience hearing. Questions and suggestions are welcome, depending upon the chairman's wisdom. Either we can take 1 or 2 questions right now, or in the end, whatever you decide. Thank you, Mr. Raj Kapoor, and thank you all for this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for such a wonderful session.
Thank you.
Now we move on to the
this
next.
Time was short, so I am sorry, I went a little fast. I did
But
not
sir, you gave a lot
but I
of
hope I have touched the issue.
You gave us a lot of information in such a short span of time. It was very enlightening.
Thank you, Ji. Thank you.
Yeah, now next we move on to the next presentation by Mr. Sharminder Pal Singh, and he would be presenting it on a reformulation, a stepwise gradual reduction approach, basically reduction in sugar and fats.
Thank you. So Dr. Mishra, a very good presentation. If you can allow me to present and stop sharing.
Yes.
Thank you.
It stops there. Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I hope you can see my screen. Is the screen full, or you need me to make
Sir,
it?
absolutely fine. It is
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, you can start, sir.
Okay. So thank you very much, all. First, it's a pleasure to be with the experts. So I'm here to gain and share some of the thoughts, including the point Dr. Suniti made. So my talk today, these are my views, and we can certainly work together. Phenomenal work now available from, for example, Dr. Mishra's slide. I remember when I was in GSK, I was fortifying the products from 1989 to 94. I had no clue. And now we have a huge opportunity of learning, gaining from each other. So So when the first DHA came, so we struggled. But now I think I'm going to just skip this slide. Just trying to connect that, now we have more information available. Probably we don't know how to connect the dots. For example, there's a lot of information available with the academia. So maybe one of the proposals I would like to make is that we need to connect the organizations. In fact, as part of the reformulation journey, we have proposed to the Food Safety Authority that there should be a consortium where the information available with all is placed, and then collectively the views are taken, so that at the national level as a country we move rather than few food producers. So starting my presentation, very well articulated only by Dr. Shankar. So I'm going to touch few points. Uh, this was covered by him. So we need to be very careful in terms of when the foods are being reformulated, that we are not bringing additional risks. And I have two examples later on. One on how to reformulate. Secondly, ensure that the food safety is not compromised. Looking at the picture for India, we have seen good developments, but we have a large mass to cater to. So Dr. Shankar has already made points which I tried to cover in this. We have a lot of work to be done at the country level. And if I just look at the NCDs part, the numbers are huge. For example, the diabetes number which Doc mentioned, so I'm just doing a quick check today. The number of people who will be diabetic by the projections in India by 2030 would be equivalent to almost entire UAE country population today. So it's a huge number. And also rightly pointed out that food is one, but like even in the COVID situation, our physical activity has come down. So while we need to look at the composition of the foods, certainly the quantity of food being consumed, and also making sure that we have adequate physical activity and a positive lifestyle really available and promoted as the culture. Uh, this is a great learning from the pandemic. At least, we can do it. So we have been able to do good job, and I'm sure collectively we will all be able to do a good job even in future. So looking at the NCD from the global perspective, so we have 38 million number, which is huge. And if we look at the cuts, the four risk factors: tobacco, alcohol, yes, but physical inactivity and the total diet. So within diet, all the foods will come in the form of the diet. So to look at it more from a larger perspective, also how to look at the subject in more details, and not only for today but also for tomorrow, for our children, for the new country, for the new age population, so the seniors who are increasing in number. So we have on one hand to handle the nutrition deficiency, the other hand we have to look at the avenues to sort of look at how can we address some of the issues collectively. And consumer trends, for example, vegetarianism, which was more linked to India, is now becoming more popular. There are many reasons. I'll not go into the details today. Separately, the consumer is also asking for some of the products to make adjustments so that the claims can be made available. There were 2 points made earlier. Maybe quickly I can clarify. First of all, the claims today, whether it is an immunity claim on people, people are just going left, right, and not even look at the substantiation piece. So I think there's a lot of responsibility which is supposed to be exercised by the people. Secondly, Food Safety Authority has done a fantastic job in terms of mapping the claims regulation. And now when that claim regulation is going to be and reform can't be done in a haste. And there are some examples which I'm going to share. Uh, if I look at the reformulation, the opportunity available to us is not only to reduce, remove, or replace partly or totally some of the constituents. For example, trans fat. We clearly have we are ahead of the curve now versus WHO. a lot of time spent by government to address the issue. And I think the gradual reduction has clearly articulated very well in terms of phasing out trans fats in vanaspati, for example, in India now. We'll be doing it probably 1 year ahead of WHO mandate. So it's a great work. So likewise, sad fat or fat, wherever possible, both. So could be considered. Sodium, sugar, certainly important. But one other area which I think is getting missed is portion sizes are also required to be reduced or optimized. That's another good strategy. While doing the reduction, my proposal is that reforms can be achieved by adding back something which could be considered. Now, it will vary matrix wise, as Dr. Mishra mentioned. There are many issues, but there are many opportunities available. For example, protein fortification, the relevant fortification. Everyone need to fortify. It has to be done in a very judicious, effective, and implementable manner, considering consumer at the table, not just one side solution that I have added. Now doesn't matter. I have going to just label it. No, it has to be seen in a much larger context. Similarly, for example, whole grain. So we don't have much debate on this subject, but I think moving from traditional farming to now whole grain to then refined and mix of grains. And Deepti ji was mentioning how can we even fortify chakki atta in the beginning. So I think somewhere we need to start thinking even broader in terms of the components to be encouraged, like whole grains, pulses, legumes, particularly fruits and vegetables. How can we include these or add the beneficial fats? Yeah, so these are some thoughts. I'll tell you what is my perspective on the reformulation. I have seen in a couple of meetings that the scope is, when when we were discussing that, let's reduce 20%, 30%. I think we need to do it in a much more robust scientific manner. I would like to share with you one or two examples how the other countries, the developed countries, have handled this issue before any reformulation is planned. So first of all, there is a data available to understand where the contribution is coming from. For example, in case of sugars, the beverages and snacks are almost what 75% contribution there. Look at it from the sat fat perspective. So there's the information available, at least from the diets angle. We have mixed dishes and sweets and snacks almost giving more than 50% of the contribution. And when it is split further, so burgers and sandwiches contributed significantly there in US. So one way is to look at just do it, and the other way is to look at do it the right way and do it in a meaningful way. If I look at the sodium content, again, the mixed dishes were giving 44% of the contribution to the consumers. And out of that, half was by the burgers and sandwiches. I'm not saying that all can forget and that just focus on this, but these are the good starters for a right policy. The point Dr. Shankar made was absolutely critical. We need to have the right policy so that slowly we are making large impact. So this is one example which I thought is important. And also the US dietary guidelines clearly articulate that basis a lot of learnings from these markets over about 15 years. Don't go fast, don't do too much of a reduction suddenly, because the chances of success are very, very low. People will switch back. But as a system, ecosystem, look at small changes which at the nation's level are big changes. So that's the message which clearly articulated in their guidelines. Let us look at UK. So UK, many times, even in the industry meetings, I remember I was presenting this slide. So people said, oh, 8.6 to 8.8 gram to 8.6 gram is a small change. Oh no, it's a big change at nation's level. So the slide here indicates that 10% of salt reduction in a progressive manner has helped the country achieve it over time. So if we start with 20%, only 5% or maybe 1 or 2% people work on it from the industry, for example. For example, in our case, salt is most likely coming in the thali and then also contributed by the packaged food. So our approach could be different, but the point here is that time and again, phase manner approach has been seen very effective. Also, the UK decided that it should be a voluntary approach so that many can sort of join the hands and work together. In 2014, they were realizing that without going to the restaurants, the targets which were set will not be achieved. So it was a good way to move the needle from 8.8 grams on a day basis in 2003 to reach to 8 grams per day by 2016. While mathematically appears to be a small number, but I think from the public health point of view, this is a significant change. So we can learn from even UK when they were doing the study. So they looked at where the salt was coming from in the diet. uh, Give me a minute. So this was the kind of a profile, the contribution which were coming for the salts, cereal products. Now we can't even think without looking at the data whether these will be the contributors. Then the salt in the processed food was contributing 61%. Bear in mind there the 70 odd percent food is processed, so rest is at home. In our case, the situation is different. But even that number was sliced further to understand where this was being contributed from. So 54% came from the categories. And then there was a roadmap to look at how do we apply this strategy, which is continuously monitored and reset every 2 to 3 years to meet the requirements and also enable the regulatory consideration, because there was many issues which were faced by the industry. And I'm sure our food safety authority is very progressive and can really help. So the key point here was a stepwise lowering of the targets was achievable by having a approach of not only just working between all the stakeholders, but also working with the target in mind. Similarly, Ireland has actually reduced the numbers over 14 years, and these are the good examples. So now we can learn from their experiences and adapt to the needs of Indian situation. Sodium reduction in US package study, 1 point almost 50, 1.5 crore products were sampled, and they have shown a decrease in the products which were bought by the consumers, although they need to now do more studies. But at least this indicates where to apply the energy. And from UK, again going back to UK for sugar and calorie reduction, so they have this target for 5 years you achieve 20% reduction. And the focus is again on making it more relevant for those who contribute largely, so 80/20 principles. Yeah, so I think we need to we can probably leverage the work these guys have done. And this was very good report to me. When the some of the members in our industry discussion were saying that these were small numbers, but when these are multiplied over time, these are very significant numbers and giving the motivation to the sector to improve. Also, our eat right, the message is very clear: reduce gradually so that you are adapting. And I think that's a fantastic communication which has gone from food safety authority. So it is not only for the food products which are packaged, but for all the foods which are being consumed. A couple of slides here, so I can now skip many slides, but reformulation has to be seen as a very apt approach to be looked at more from the future perspective and connecting all the dots from nutrition expectations to regulatory requirements understood in the beginning. A lot of knowledge available from science and technology, like Dr. Mishra mentioned. So how can we leverage the work which is done there rather than recreate the knowledge, and also look at whether consumers are going to be accepting. So a continuous engagement testing the consumer. So this is the overall wheel which actually helps in uh, designing the formulations. And in the interest of time, I have to shift to, I will just go to the specific slide. So reformulation while it is discussed easily but very difficult to achieve, some of the experiences, like for example, sugar in the foods has a very key role, which is varying food by food. For example, in the beverage, the sugar functionality is different. Then how does functioning in jams, then in biscuits and bakery, and a biscuit and bakery itself is a huge sector, and Dr. Kapoor is here, so he is a subject matter on this. So we have probably 1,000 different kinds of formulations, at least at the larger level, and the level of sugar added and also the utilization is varying even within the same called biscuit. So it's required to be seen in context to the metrics, what is possible with high intensity sweeteners or with the sugar replacers like polyols. But uh, the strategies essentially include not only looking at the product formulation but also looking at more from the portion control strategy. The other piece which I wanted to touch upon for quickly was that there is no point looking at dropping one ingredient and let us see the impact, because if I'm reducing 25% sugar in a product without putting any replacement, I'm actually increasing the fat content, also increasing the salt as well as calories. Now, if I reduce 50% sugar because the other 50% of sugar reduced, for example, in a biscuit, let us say, so about 20 gram is sugar in a biscuit. Now, if I remove 10 grams, the all other nutrients, the positive nutrients are getting increased, but equally the other nutrients which are now in 90 grams becomes available in 100 grams. So on a percentage basis, all those nutrients increase. And that's why my request continuously has been that look at the reformulation in a much more holistic way, to look at while addressing one issue, we are not creating another issue. Sugar percentage calories, for example, in the toned milk, or when we are taking the product, so there was a notification which is now in now not consideration because it's being recalibrated. So the requirement put for the industry was 10% of the sugar calories. I think there is no other country in the world where this requirement has come in. So we were just doing an analysis. Toned milk, because there is a fat and protein, so the percentage calories, the total quantity of sugar remaining same in these cases. What happens when I remove the fat from the milk and use that as a medium? Because my calories in the milk has reduced, my percentage calories from sugar increases with the same concentration of sugar in the formulation. So if the approach is to, in other words, to add sugar, I shouldn't be adding more fat, or to add sugar, I shouldn't be pumping in more fat to justify reduction in the sugar. So that's why it is very important. And again, looking from the juice drinks point of view, where largely the calories and the sugar content are the contributors. Even 50% reduction amounts to only 66% of the sugar calories in the drink. Assuming the quantity of sugars is reduced in the drinks, which is average about 10-12% today, to 1/4. Just because 50% reduction, we can never reach this 10% sugar calorie number, uh, except for the commodities like milk per se. So there's no point putting the criteria which is not going to be useful. Another way to depict, so if the purpose is to reduce the fat, salt, sugar, my regulatory policy also need to be conducive to encourage the reduction. What happens at 12% sugar buffalo milk, sweetened milk, uh, the sugar percent calories are 32, which reduces to 25% with 8% buffalo milk. Now, if I change from buffalo milk to cow milk, now because of matrix where I'm going to reduce the sugar has got lesser calories from fat and total calories are dropping, my percentage sugar calories increase to 40%. But if I change it to skimmed milk, it becomes 60%. So we need to keep all these factors in consideration while designing the approach for the reduction. There are many ways to reformulate. The choices will vary even within the same category. For example, in case of ice creams. So whether the replacement is to reduce the calories or sugar or both. And while doing so, should there be any GI tolerance impact considered? Yes or no? Can I add soluble fiber? So this is a kind of a simple matrix which I have created for the industry as a kind of a thought starter. So it may vary from product to matrix wise, but directionally, if we are looking at reducing singly or both, so the approaches will vary between the categories and also could vary between the food companies basis the technology available with them. Labeling, yes, India is the country where sweeteners on one hand we are talking about obesity and diabetes and sugar should be reduced, but on the other hand we have contains artificial sweetener and the declaration not recommended for children. So if someone wants to reduce the calories of sugar in a sweetened milk, for example, at home, and if the products are available with sugar, so there is no way the products will be innovated unless this advisory not recommended for children is addressed to, because now for children, if the product is being made for children or suitable for children in general, the sugar reduction can only happen through the substitutes, but the industry will not be able to use it. So I have seen people coming back and saying that I will not add sugar to lassi because it is not recommended for children. If it is not recommended for children, it is not recommended for the family. So that's the way it is going. Actually, this labeling came in to address the issue of energy being consumed less at the time when it was being approved. Now the time has come, now the time is different. Now we are probably looking at reducing sugar, and hence we need to look at these. I'm sure Food Safety Authority, we have made the representation, will look at it, and it could be an enabler. Trans fat, we are on a good journey to have a trans fat free country. Uh, Massive work by the industry again. It's a great again the example how can collectively people look at transforming the businesses. Also, while making the products healthier, there are many other areas need to be addressed. For example, when someone is frying the food, so repeat frying oil, the guideline which have been issued by the authority, all those have to be part of the design metrics. If fat can't be reduced, the alternate option is to look at choosing the right oils to reduce the saturated fatty acid. Now, from the labeling point of view, again, we have fat, we have type of fats mentioned, but we have sat fat as mandated. The purpose of sat fat mandate was to help inform the consumers what is the quantity of sat fat. Industry's problem is if we have to change the two oils, we can't change the label because the cost of label change is huge, and there's a huge cost which actually gets passed on to the consumers in one way while part is being shared by the industry. So we need to look at how the regulatory systems can be flexible, and there are available sources from globe. For example, how US is handling this, how Europe is handling. Europe, people have been able to reduce that fat by approaching the labeling in a very constructive way, because the kind of oils is less important now. It was probably required when sat fat wasn't mandatory on the label. Now sat fat being there, sat fat same level can be achieved by blending various oils. So that kind of flexibility helps. And yeah, in the interest of time, so on the salt, my view is that all the preparations mostly in our thali have salt. So start from the thali. I also have a very small, very different, maybe a slightly different view. There's a lot of media reports. Social media is also a killer as a supporter. So for example, monosodium glutamate. So the discussion is monosodium glutamate has high sodium, but the use level is probably a complementary effect available to reduce sodium in our diet by 25% using it judiciously. So somewhere science can actually cut the standards in a right manner rather than being governed by the perceptions is where I think our food safety authority again will do a fantastic job in future also. So reformulation of the sodium, I can share one example. So when we reduce 45% salt in our Lay's portfolio, we went to the consumers, and there were two packs, one with the claim, low, so lighter kind of a claim, because we could make that claim considering codex consideration where the level is reduced by 25% more. Consumers simply discarded that. In fact, the message which clearly came out of three researchers was that you can't touch my formulation. So we looked at then the micronized salt as approach, because the contact time of the salt to the surface of the tongue was actually important, which we could achieve by reducing 40%. And in many cases, it is okay not to make the claims. That's my view, uh, because the perceptions consumers have is not going to change so quickly. But opportunity available. Only thing is, from a public health point of view, when we see the communication, it could be sometimes there could be concessions made by ourselves that even if my product is making the claim, I'll not make it. So also there, when the sodium salt reduction strategies are being considered, we need to look at all the components which can actually contribute to the salt or sodium in this case. There was a lot of discussion early last year on labeling salt on the front of the pack. Why salt? Because if the hidden salt is more than 30-40% in some of the foods, people will actually consume those, considering those kind of products have no salt. Whereas the sodium is the right way to approach it, because sodium is also the right element which is a risk factor, not salt per se. So it is important that the policy considers all these factors while developing the approaches for the reduction or reformulation. So reformulation being a very costly, expensive exercise, I can tell you it is. It used to take me close to 3 to 4 years to reformulate a product. Maybe it has come down to 1.5 years now. Still, a lot of work is required to be done. And the key point is, if this is for the industry. So if flexibility is high at the initial stages, but as the product is being uh, designed and then developed, the chances of flexibilities are reducing, which means it is very important for the industry to look at how to do the reformulations in a very meaningful, effective, and a constructive way. Because the change of the design at the end of the development gate would be cost prohibitive, and we don't want people to unnecessarily bleed. So in fact, this is one area, Dr. Mishra, where I think for the MSME sector, there's a lot of knowledge which the industry will be creating, and immense knowledge available the academia. So we can probably look at combining our efforts to make some of the modules for the SME sector. So my key takeaways are that the gradual reduction has shown significant and more effective ways to address the issue, and we need to have many involved. So that can be done in a way, for example, if UK has done voluntary, so and people are comfortable doing it. So we look at calibrating the numbers and also then do a monitoring. So we focus on monitoring, ensure that the category based numbers are then developed in 2 years time, and then decide what is the best way to do the label. I have one basis my 30 odd years in R&D and that too in the food. I have a feeling that our consumers don't even understand our labels because we have too much of information on the labels. So we need to look at it from the consumer's angle. Now, if I look at the nutrition labeling world over, I think the best label is US label, because it is not just listing any nutrient in any way. First of all, the nutrients are listed from top to bottom, and that's where the interest reduces for a consumer. The most important nutrient is on the top, and the label is giving information on a per portion basis or a serve basis, as well as in context to daily diet. Yeah, so all our foods labeled at 100 gram is going to be terribly difficult for consumers because the serving will vary between the companies. There's no way we can standardize serving. So it'll be important to look at probably if uh, Dr. Kapoor permit me, but if we were to do my view is if we were to do a better job, we should look at a kind of model label which US guys have. So last slide. So the reformulation, in my opinion, is a reform to reduce, replace, or remove the nutrients which are required to be addressed, enhance the components and the nutrients which are very important to be integrated into the formulation designs. Taste is the only factor which decides the products. For example, in a case, diet products have less than zero point 0.1 calorie, but consumers continue to believe that the sugar formula are good. So we need to continuously look at going to the consumers and keep them updated. My other view is that as this is done as a reform by the industry, where everyone makes a small step, so we are actually helping the consumers adapt faster rather than leaving it through a forced route to which probably some will choose, all may not choose. So my view is that we should leave it in a way, we should lead it in a way where we get critical mass and all are all are working together to the same to meet the request or the expectations consumers have. So this is quick, very fast. Sorry, I think I've taken yes more time. Sorry for this 7 minutes delay. I didn't realize. My apologies, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. It was very informative, though it was a long session, but it gave us a lot of information. Thank you so much. So now we move on to the next presentation, which is by Dr. Kavita Reddy, and the topic for her is high protein products. Ma'am, I request you to please share your presentation.
Yeah, I will. Thank you, Ashni. Good to see you. And thank you, Raj, for giving me this opportunity to be one among the panelists. Greetings to all the distinguished panelists. So I'll get on straight to my presentation. Okay. Raj had asked me to talk a little bit about protein. Ashni, am I sharing my screen?
Yes, ma'am, you're
Yes, ma'am.
sharing your screen, but just make it to a slideshow mode that the presentation should cover the entire screen.
Okay, thank you. Yeah?
Yeah, it is fine, ma'am.
Okay. I'm going to talk a little bit about protein and how it is very important and all. Basically, I'm a nutritionist, so mine will be totally focused on nutrition. And as we all know, protein is very important. Most of us know that. And we all know that it is very, very important for our growth and development because it's like the building blocks for our body. And also it is very important for so many activities we do during the day. When we go to sleep in the night, our body repairs what all abuse we put our body throughout the day, and that is done. The repair work is also done by protein and for maintenance. And in the present scenario, it is we all know how important our immunity is. So, and immunity is not something we can get it in a day. It has to be, it's a long process, but it's never too late. We are born, when we are born, we get some immune characteristics from our mothers, which we carry throughout our life, but it is never too late. We can start it at any time. So let's, today I thought a little bit I'll focus on immunity and protein, though having good amount of protein and good quality of protein is important for growth and development, repair and maintenance. Like our hair is nothing but more than 90% is just protein. And we have so many advertisements going on, like this shampoo is fortified with protein, that shampoo, and we all go for it. A lot of people go for it. And I run a clinic in the evening on nutrition counseling. So a lot of people come. So I really searched on the net, does protein in some way in the shampoo help it? But I didn't find anything. So it's, unless we have raw material in our food, hair is not going to grow. Egg fortified, soy fortified shampoos are good for conditioning, but that's about it. So let's go to protein. And what in general we Indians have problem with is, let's go to protein. Okay. Now, when you come to protein, most non-vegetarians, those who eat other than milk products like eggs, fish, meat, and etc., they are placed in a better position, because what happens is animal proteins are complete proteins. And it's not just how much protein we require is important, how much good quality protein we are consuming also is very, very important. So animal proteins, they have like we need 9 essential amino acids. Amino acids are the building blocks of protein. So 9 of them are very, very important, because we cannot synthesize them in our body. And another thing with protein is it's not stored in the body. So we have to supply through our diet every day. So that's why protein is very, very important. And when it comes to milk, egg, fish, meat, they all have these 9 essential amino acids. So it's a complete protein, good quality protein. And if we have animal products in every meal, we are fine, fantastic. But the problem comes when we are vegetarians or people who only eat eggs and milk. Like I don't eat meats, I eat only milk and eggs. So for people like us, it is very difficult, because plant proteins, whether you take dals, whether you take cereals, that is rice and roti, or millets, all of them are missing 1 or 2 essential amino acids. So they are not complete proteins. So we have to think about it and make them a complete protein. We don't want incomplete protein, because when we supply raw material protein into our body, it should be complete. Whichever amino acid our body wants to pick up, it should be present. So unless we have complete good quality protein, we will not have all the essential amino acids. And now if you come to immunity, what happens is we have 2 types of immunity: innate immunity and adaptive immunity. Innate immunity is like when something attacks us, our body just sends all ammunition out, all sorts of antibodies. But next time, if the same virus or bacteria attacks us, it remembers, it has memory, and it will only send specific antibodies to attack it. And that is called adaptive immunity. And the raw material for these antibodies is nothing but protein. So that is why in the present scenario, it is even more important that we have good amount of protein and good quality of protein. Now, let's talk about little bit of complete proteins and incomplete proteins. Now, then what do we vegetarians do? So when you eat, like the ancestral this thing we have, knowledge we have, always mix a cereal with dal, rice with dal, or roti with dal, and that makes a complete protein. That's why like a lot of my clients say that they don't eat dals that much, especially not in the night, and morning they don't eat. Only in the lunchtime they eat a little bit of dal, and that too it's very liquid like. So we are not able to, we eat a lot of cereal, but what is missing in the cereal, we have to eat the dal to make it complete. So we have to have a good amount of dal in the meals. So have some dal, idli, dosa, things like that. Or in the lunch, have nice thick dal. Have in the evening also, and a lot of people think it is difficult to digest. Eat it a little earlier, 2 hours little earlier, so it will be digested. It is not, it's usually when you eat chole, rajma, things which have the whole the seed coat, that's when it becomes difficult. And milk is a good protein source. So eat curd every meal, lunch, dinner. It is good. Like earlier, Dr. Mishra spoke about probiotics and all. It's very good. And now I know most of you have industries and you want to talk about that part more. So I'll switch to that now. See, like Mr. Singh, the earlier speaker said, when you give something which we are used to, then people adapted to it very well. If you give like, when my clients come, if I give oats omelette and kale something and all, they will do it for 1 week. And after that, they come back, no, we want our regular thing, because not only it is difficult to source them and to eat, but nobody cooks only for themselves, they cook for the entire family, so it's very, very difficult. So most of my clients think I'm a very boring nutritionist because I only stick to idlis and dosas and all, but I know they will come back in the end because they want the same things. So think of making protein better in whatever products we already have. Like suppose you have atta, wheat flour. How do we increase the protein? How do we make it complete? So by adding, say, pea protein, or by adding soy flour. If you add soybeans, then there is some fat, so it may get rancid. So adding soy flour would be better. And one thing is, we should never underestimate the consumer, because they are reading they know that, okay, this is multigrain, this has soy, this has some legumes, some chana dal in it. So it is, they may not know that it is a complete protein and all the essential amino acid, that sort of knowledge, but they know it is better. So it is always, try to fortify your atta with, say, any legume flour or soy or some other. Think about it, and also standardize it, because when maybe the products they make don't turn out better. So that is one thing we have to keep in mind. Standardize whatever. Suppose roti flour, so other roti is coming out decent color and the taste is not so different that they will not touch it again. So you want the footfall or the loyalty to your brand to increase. So increase it sufficiently, but don't overdo it. And nowadays millets are like, they are the most fashionable products everywhere. So why I'm telling you this is, I made some YouTube video on millets, and I had just told don't overdo it, because it has a lot of fiber and mineral absorption is less. And that is my only video which had some dislikes also on it. So I was like, oh, what happened? So I tried to contact a few people and they said, you said that it is not that good. So people just blindly believe everything to do with millets is very, very good. But with millets also, try to fortify the flour with, if you're making, say, millet cookies and all, they are very, very popular now. Try to fortify them with, say, some legume flour or some casein, or if you could add egg into it. Like, try to increase the protein content and also protein quality. That is one thing you could do. And like ma'am said, we cannot go without process. Some people have processed means bad. Like even cleaning unwanted things from our food products is also processing. Like you have to make a differentiation between that. And process in when you come to processed foods like bread and all, they have become an integral part of our daily life. So in those, how could we add something? Maybe some soy flour could be added, maybe some pea protein could be added, something. Just we have to add little bit of protein to make it complete protein, and in the same products, whether it's cookies, biscuits, bread, rotis, whatever. But try not to get some outlandish recipes. Something very simple which you could eat it every day. And Besan is another thing. It's just a chana dal flour. In that, maybe you can add some rice flour or something, little bit, to make it a complete protein. I don't know much about labeling and all, so I don't know if you could write on it saying that it is become a complete protein or something like that. But such things, when you make a product, if you combine cereal and dal, it will make a better product. So this is what I wanted to tell you all about, that plant proteins are not complete proteins. So you have to mix both of them. So wherever you can mix both of them, cereal and dal or millet and dal, you will be making a complete protein. So that way we can make better products, because protein is one of the nutrients which either we eat less or we don't eat good quality protein. Because an adult will require about 0.8 grams of protein per kg body weight. And if it is a child or a pregnant woman or a lactating, it becomes double. And also same thing with an athlete. So this is a nutrient which is a bit dicey, and we are little bit eating little less, and also the quality is not so good. So please keep in mind that we should eat a good amount of protein, good quality of protein, and at the same time, it will boost our immunity, and immunity is something you build up over a time. And I'm stressing so much on immunity because it is of utmost importance now, especially for children and for older people and for everybody actually. So thank you very much for your attention. I'll be here, and if you have any questions, I'll be very happy to answer them for you. Thank you, Raj, and thank you, Ashni, for giving me this opportunity. Ashni, you have to unmute yourself.
I'm sorry. Thank you so much, ma'am. It was a wonderful presentation. So we move on to the next presentation now.
I have to stop sharing. Just
Yeah,
a
you have
minute.
to stop sharing your presentation. And next presentation is by Mrs. Deepthi Gulati, and the topic is enriching food and enriching lives. So Deepthi ma'am, I request you to please share your presentation.
Sure. Hi, friends. It's such an honor and a pleasure to be on the same dais with my mentors, my friends, my colleagues, and to be sharing, information on food fortification, which is very close to my heart. So when we are talking about food fortification, basically we are talking about enriching foods, because we are adding micronutrients to foods so that they become more nutrition dense, and they have micronutrients in it, which micronutrients, as we all know, are vitamins and minerals, which we normally get from fruits and vegetables. And if we are having micronutrients in our diet, our life certainly gets enriched because we remain healthy. So I'll start off, and I hope it would excite you to ask a lot of questions. So when we look at how the nutrition scenario is in the world, what we find is that there are 1.9 billion people who are overweight or obese. There are 2 billion people, more than the obesity. We have 2 billion people who are deficient in vitamins or minerals. 815 million people suffer from chronic hunger. That means they're constantly hungry. 159 million are stunted, which includes me also, because I'm also very short. And then we have people who are overweight. Now let's see what is the scenario in India. With a population of over 1.3 billion, India is the second most populous country in the world, and we all know about it. Despite the substantial strides in food grain production, You all know there's so much of cereals in our warehouses. Nutrition security remains a tough challenge, and India is severely affected. About 26% of India's population, which is about 338 million, are considered food insecure because they are consuming less than 80% of the minimum energy requirements. Malnutrition in Indian children is amongst the highest in the world. Nothing to be proud of. And overnutrition is emerging as a big public health problem, which has been stated by my previous speakers also. So we all know that food that we eat defines our health. So let's see what we are eating and how we are faring. When you look at a typical diet, the composition of our diet is something like this, which comprises 50% grains and tubers and just 11% of fruits and vegetables, which are the major source of micronutrients. Proteins, as my previous speaker Kavita had mentioned, are only about 9% in our diet, and we need to improve that. Dairy products shade better, but they're 17%. And when we say dairy products, it includes milk, and a lot of milk is into the tea. Not to say that it is bad, but just a point to clarify. So the typical Indian diet is very high on cereals and very low on micronutrient-rich foods like fruits and vegetables. And let's see how a balanced plate should look like. This is how a balanced plate should look like, which should have almost equal amount of fruits and vegetables as compared to breads and cereals, and certainly a good combo of meat, fish, beans, pulses, milk and dairy products, and of course fat. We do need to have fat in our diet because the impact on our health status is obvious. What we find is that children level data, which you can see on the screen, because if you would compare, I have picked up states from different regions of the country, and situation is not good. What we find is that about 59% children in the age group of 6 months to 5 years, when the brain development is at its peak, 59% are anemic, and iron is required for brain growth also, for cognitive development also. When we look at adults, 60%, only 60% of the adults are receiving adequate diet. Iron folic acid tablets are provided by the health system through the sub-centers. What we find is that only 30% of women are consuming iron folic acid tablets for 100 days or more. The result is obvious. 50% of pregnant women are anemic. 53% of all women in the age group of 15 to 40 years are anemic. And even men are not spared. 23% of men are also anemic. That means that every second woman is anemic. When we look at vitamin A and D deficiency in India, this is an NIN survey data. It is an older survey, but situation has not really improved much. When we look at the scenario across the country, we find that vitamin D deficiency is rampant across the country. And when we look at the vitamin A deficiency, at the blood level, the 62% of people in these 8 states that the survey had done, it was a representative survey, that 62% of people suffer from vitamin A deficiency at the blood level. So India does have a very high burden of vitamin A and D deficiencies also, which impact every one of us. Now, many a times the question comes that, is nutrition a poverty issue? So let's look at it. So when we look at stunting, when we look at underweight, or when we look at thinness of women in the age group of 15 to 49 years, we find that these figures are higher in the lowest income quintile, even though stunting and underweight affects high income quintiles also, but it is only about 20% or 22%. So undernutrition affects poorest the most. But when we look at anemia, whether it is high income group or it is a low income group, We have 52% of children in the highest quintile which are anemic, and we have 64% children in the lowest income quintile who are anemic. Similarly, when we look at women, 48% of women in the highest income quintile and 59% in the lowest income quintile are anemic. When we look at the food consumption patterns of micronutrient rich foods, what we find is 47% people in the highest quintile are consuming vitamin A rich foods, and 42% of people are consuming vitamin A rich foods in the lowest quintile. And same is the case with iron rich foods, 18% in the highest and 15% in the lowest quintile. So the poor consumption of micronutrient rich foods and anemia impacts every one of us. It does not differentiate. सबके साथ एक ही बात हो रही है. So what are the options that we have to control micronutrient malnutrition, which is so high and so rampant in India? We have 3 options. One is supplementation, which is taking tablets, syrups. It is a very safe and an efficient strategy to eliminate micronutrient deficiencies. So we do get it in capsules, syrups, and weekly iron folic acid tablets are given to school children. But compliance becomes an issue. आप और मैं भी भूल जाते होंगे, tablet खाना, even though we are required to take iron tablets, calcium tablets, vitamin D tablets, but do we regularly consume? So compliance is an issue, and even the government programs, only 55% of the population is actually taking their supplements. Then we have dietary diversification. And as our speakers have already mentioned, affordability of a diversified diet is a big question, more so in today's time. And even today, the headline was that 10% inflation on fresh fruits and vegetables. So affordability, accessibility, and availability of a diversified diet is a question. Of course, it is the best option, of course. When we look at staple food fortification, it's a good option because staple consumption is very high in India. Fortification processes are available. Fortification can be done easily, and it has the potential to reach all age groups. It does not require any change in food habits. You may forget to take a tablet of iron folic acid or vitamin A or for iron, but you don't forget to eat food. So if you don't forget to eat food, then if the food is fortified, you get micronutrients automatically. So fortification is the most cost-effective, low cost, and it can yield results in a very short period of time. So let's see what are the strategic advantages of fortification. The first is that staple foods are consumed regularly, every day by all of us. So whether it's wheat flour, rice, oil, salt, milk, we consume them every day, and hence they are best suited for fortification. It's a proven, simple, low-cost technology with rapid health impact. It's a preventive approach. It is not a curative approach. It's a preventive approach, and it is population-wide because everyone is consuming same foods, and it can also be marketed through the commercial channels, and fortified foods can be mainstreamed into the food safety net programs like the ICDS, MDM, and the PDS. Since staple foods are centrally processed and micronutrients are added only at about 25 to 30% of the required dietary allowances, there is no risk for excessive intake. All I can just share with you is that even if you are at a party, or even if the food at home is very delicious, instead of taking 2 chapatis, you can take 4, but you cannot take 10. So excessive intake does not happen. Food is self-limiting. There is no change in color, taste, texture, or quality of staples due to fortification, and hence there is very high acceptability of fortified staples. Added micronutrients are very stable during cooking and storage. Hence, the value addition lasts long. Consumption of fortified foods does not require any behavior change. You don't have to remember to eat food. You will eat food. And when I was talking about the cost effectiveness, as you can see, the cost of fortifying wheat flour is just about 10 paisa per kg. Cost of fortifying milk is just about 0.15 paisa per kg. And of edible oil is about 10 to 15 paisa per kg. Of course, there is a cost of fortification, which gets, and there's cost of processing and packaging. Now, as far as milk and edible oils are concerned, you don't require any additional cost for packaging. Processing, quality assurance, quality control add to a little bit more. But when you talk of processing for wheat flour, yes, wheat flour is ground and the cost of grinding is anything between 2 rupees 50 paisa to 3 rupees, and that's what is listed here, because that is something everyone has to incur anyway, because no one is consuming wheat grain. So the cost of fortification per se per year, per person per year, is just about 8 rupees for wheat flour, about 3 rupees for milk, and about another 3 to 4 rupees for oil. So total it costs just about 14 rupees to 15 rupees per annum for fortified food products. That is very, very minimal. Of course, at the small chakki level, the cost of fortifying wheat flour goes up a little, and I'm sure our friend from IIT Kharagpur, he's just going to develop something very good to fortify wheat flour even at the chakki level. So the cost is minuscule on a per person per year basis, and benefits are enormous. So Dr. Mishra, my pitch to you is that kindly develop a product and equipment which can start fortification at the village level, chakki also.
Sure, I will look into it. Thank you.
Food fortification works. If you look at the industrial countries, the impact in Canada on margarine fortification was wonderful. It reduced from 48%, vitamin A deficiency reduced from 48% to 2%, and mortality from 105 to 60 way back in 1944 to 48. We are the late starters. But when you look at Venezuela flour fortification program, we also find that the iron deficiency reduced from 37 to just about 15%, and anemia from 19 to 9% within a span of 2 years, which is more recent, that is between 92 to 94. Even our own Indian data is very encouraging. GAIN has not done any studies, but what we have seen from our NFHS4 data, what we have seen from the CNNS data, we are very encouraged. Because when you look at all India figures and when you look at Rajasthan figures, for underweight, stunted and under 5 mortality, they are comparable, 36, 37, 38, 39, 50, 51. So as far as underweight, stunting and under 5 mortality is concerned, all India and Rajasthan are at par. When you look at the number of children or the percentage of children who received at least 1 dose of vitamin A, it is 60% at all India level, and it is 40% in Rajasthan, 20% less. But when we look at the prevalence of vitamin A deficiency in children 5 to 9 years, when we look at vitamin A deficiency in 10 to 19 years under the Comprehensive National Nutrition Survey data, it is 21.5% to 15.6%. But when we look at in Rajasthan, it is very encouraging to see that vitamin A deficiency in children 5 to 9 years is just 1%. And when we look at vitamin A deficiency in children 10 to 19 years, it is just 1.9%. Perhaps the efforts of GAIN for saturating the oil that is sold in Rajasthan and milk that is sold in Rajasthan is totally fortified. So the entire milk that is sold in Rajasthan is fortified with vitamin A and D. The entire oil that is sold in Rajasthan is fortified with vitamin A and D. And this has been going on gradually from a project mode to a program mode from 2011 till date. Perhaps that may have made the difference. I'm not claiming it, but it could be a conjecture, but we feel that we may have contributed. Then when we look at mothers who consumed IFA, it is 30% at all India level, and only 17% women consumed IFA for 100 days in Rajasthan. But when we look at the anemia figures, Rajasthan fares much better. It is 47% versus 51%, 47% versus 53% anemia figures in all women in the age group of 15 to 40 years. And even in men, all India figures is 23% as per NFHS 4 data. In men in Rajasthan, it is only 17%. And GAIN has been supporting staple food fortification of wheat flour, oil, and milk since 2011-12. And we introduced fortified wheat flour in PDS during 2012 to 2014. And the NFHS survey data was collected after that. So the NFHS 4 data is 2015-16, and we see encouraging results. Again, as I said, perhaps our efforts in fortification made a little bit of difference. So when we look at the enabling environment, we feel very happy that Food Safety and Standards Authority of India permits and advocates for fortification of staple foods. Suniti ma'am, I'm very grateful to you. You are heading the FFRC, and you made a tremendous contribution under the dynamic leadership of Mr. Pavan Agrawal and the entire team of FSSCI. You have set up systems which are still going strong. Standards for fortification of staple foods for oil, milk, wheat flour, rice, double fortified salt have been gazetted. India's 10th, 11th, 12th 5-year plans, Poshan Abhiyan, and Anemia Mukt Bharat Mission all recommend food fortification. Ministry of Food Processing Industry provides financial assistance to the food industry for capital equipment investment and its installation to undertake fortification because it is considered value addition and demand creation. Ministry of Women and Child Development, Government of India, Ministry of Health and Ministry of Human Resource Development, of course, now Ministry of Education, Government of India, made it mandatory to use fortified oil, wheat flour, and double fortified salt in MDM and ICDS programs way back in 2017. Department of Food and Public Distribution, Government of India also recommends distribution of fortified atta through PDS, and some states like Himachal Pradesh, Tripura, Kerala, they're already providing fortified atta through PDS. GAIN is happy to support these governments. Meghalaya is in the pipeline. We've done some bit of work even with Government of Delhi, and let's hope it takes on. When we look at the impact of our fortification efforts, I'm very happy to share with you that currently through, and I'm giving you these figures of January 2020, 838 million people are reached with adequately and appropriately fortified edible oil in India, and about 18 million people are getting appropriately and adequately fortified milk. We also have wheat flour, which is reaching about fortified wheat flour, which is reaching about 82 million persons across India through PDS and open market channels. So this only shows that fortification of staples is doable. If such large number of people are consuming, that means it is acceptable. So we need to move forward quickly, strongly, and with industry support, because fortification has a great potential to reach millions of people, enrich food, and give a very good start to children, which is their basic right and they richly deserve. I'm showing here the picture of our Prime Minister, Honorable Narendra Modi ji, He launched our fortified Panjiri in Gujarat in 2006 and 7, where we worked very closely. I was in World Food Program, and we worked very closely with GAIN under Dr. Shankar's mentorship and leadership. And it has been continuing even now. So let's not miss out on the opportunity. There is a political environment ready to take this on. It is food fortification is still an unfinished agenda. Industry needs to join hands. So let's join hands to provide good health and improve the quality of life of all. Let's eat right. Let's eat fortified. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I hope we would be able to finish this agenda of fortification, and we would be able to attain fortified food, and we would be able to deliver it to a lot more people, so that this malnourishment will come to an end one day. Not an end, at least it should reduce drastically. So hoping for the good. So now
At your service, always, anytime, any industry partner, any state wants food fortification to be scaled up, GAIN is always there. I can talk about GAIN, but I can only assure you all the development sector partners who are working in the area of food fortification, be it PATH, be it World Food Program, be it Nutrition International, be it UNICEF, be it Food Fortification Initiative, we have a lot of commitment. We have a lot of support from FSSAI. We have the technical expertise, and we are there to support the industry and the governments, whoever wish to take support over. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Okay, so we move on to the next presentation, and it is by Dr. Rupa Shivashankar, and the topic is Achieving Trans Fat Free India, Current Status and the Future Direction. So this Achieving Trans Fat Free India, this is an initiative by FSSAI. So she would be enlightening us on this topic now. So ma'am, please share your presentation and start it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ashni. Thank you so much. Can you all see my screen?
Yeah, ma'am, just make it slideshow, like on the full screen, so that we are able to see it. Otherwise, your presentation is visible.
Can you see it now?
Yeah, it is fine.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Raj Kapoor, for providing this opportunity to be part of this August Assembly of Experts. I really enjoyed the morning session. There was a comprehensive presentation on nutrition. I'm just going to talk about a very narrow area of nutrition. Nevertheless, has a huge, humongous impact on the health and wellness of people, which is making India trans fat free. So I represent the organization Resolve to Save Lives, which is housed in an international NGO called Vital Strategies. Resolve to Save Lives aim to prevent 100 million deaths in the globally through three main strategies that would prevent cardiovascular mortality. One is increasing the hypertension control from current 14% to the 50%, and reducing global sodium intake by 30%, and eliminating artificial trans fat. I'm just going to focus on the third part, which is eliminating artificial trans fat. So trans fat is a term which is akin to the tobacco because it has no added nutritive value in our life. So we can completely call it as a tobacco of nutrition. This is what I'm going to present today. What are trans fat? Where are they? Why should we eliminate? What is the international status? And what are Indian regulation and next steps? What are trans fats? So I know this is a diverse audience there, but some of you might be very familiar with this. Some may not be. I'm just going to quickly talk about different fatty acids. These are chains of carbon and hydrogen with a carboxy chain at the end. Basically, there are three types of fatty acid chains. One, which are called saturated fats. which do not have any double bond between the two carbon atoms, while there are monounsaturated fatty acid, which do have a one double bond in their entire chain. If there is more than one double bond, we call that as a polyunsaturated fatty acids. So within these unsaturated fatty acid, the double bond could be on the hydrogen atoms of the carbon, which has a double bond, could be on the same side of the chain. When they are so, there's a slight bend in the change in the fatty acid chain, or it could be on the either side of the carbon atom, making this chain straight, and this is called trans fatty acid. Because the trans fatty acid is a straight chain, similar to the saturated fatty acid, it becomes easy for these chains to accumulate. They are usually are in the solid forms in the room temperature, which provides a very appealing properties, which is appealing to the food industry. So where are these trans fatty acids? They could come from natural sources, they could come from industrial sources. So the natural ruminant sources of trans fatty acid occurs because of the biohydrogenation by bacteria in the gut, which are present in all these ruminant animals. So therefore are present in meat, milk and products such as butter, ghee and cheese. They usually present in a very small amount, typically less than 3%, but that can be up to 6% in some fats. Generally not considered harmful because the amount of the animal fat we consume and the amount of trans fatty acid in them are so low that it doesn't affect the health as such. One important thing to note that there are no plant-based natural sources of trans fatty acid. While industrially produced trans fatty acid comes from the partial hydrogenation of vegetable oil. It's a process of adding an hydrogen atom to the vegetable oil through a process called hydrogenation, which converts liquid oil to become solid and more spreadable, a lot of property which are required by the food industry, that it does a lot more stability, to bringing a lot more stability to the oil. Some most common examples in India are vanaspati, bakery shortening, and margarines. Although the PHVOs, that is partially hydrogenated vegetable oils, makes only up to the 10% of the total edible oils, but the 60% of those used by bakery industry. They're mostly used in the food industry and small and medium food businesses. This is very important to note that there are, although there are certain population which may be using vanaspati for at-home cooking, the most partially hydrogenated vegetable oils are used by the food industry, whether it is the large-scale food industries or the small and medium-scale food industry, which includes restaurants and halwais and caterers, etc. So in 2008, samples of vanaspati trans fatty acid in some of the brands of vanaspati was found as high as 38%. But the most recent survey which we conducted in Delhi, we found that though the trans fatty acid are not present in such higher levels, we still have large majority of food products containing greater than 5% of trans fatty acid, which is the current limit right now. As you can see, there are 20% of baked products, 45% of sweets, 41% of frozen dessert. Overall, about 16% of the food which are available in the streets are contains trans fatty acid greater than 5%. Why it is important to eliminate industrial trans fatty acid? Trans fats reduces LDL and increases HDL. LDL is a good fat, while the HDL is the bad fat. While the saturated fatty acid, which is also a bad fat, increases the LDL, it may either increase HDL or has no effect on it. So overall, trans fatty acid has got a much worse effect on our lipid metabolism in our body. So because of this, industrial produced trans fatty acid leads to cardiovascular health, disease, infertility, endometriosis, Alzheimer's, gallstones, diabetes, and even some forms of cancer. It is estimated that about 5 lakh premature deaths worldwide occurs due to the consumption of artificial trans fatty acid, and about 60,000 per year in India. So every 2% calorie that comes from trans fat can lead to increase the CVD death by 23%. So there has been modeling that has been done. What happens if we replace the trans fatty acid? And I just want to look at the red fonts in my slides and see if we replace it by saturated fatty acid, it would reduce the risk of death due to cardiovascular diseases by 17%. Replacing by MUFA would make it reduce it by 21%, and by PUFA would reduce it by 24%. So replacing trans fatty acid is feasible. Many countries have shown. It depends on the various food aspects. Basically, it is we can produce the similar properties of the fat, but not contain trans fatty acid by various other technologies, which I'm not the expert. I believe there are other experts on the panel who can explain better by such things as like fully hydrogenation or interestrification, etc. And also using regular vegetable oils in certain places like deep frying or blending of the oils, which might provide a much better quality to the fats what we would consume. So trans fats can be replaced without actually changing any sort of a consumer behavior, just by changing the ingredients what is put in the food industry. So many governments have successfully done this, and it's a very cost-effective program. And if successful, this would be the first risk factor for non-communicable diseases that can be completely eliminated globally. So this is what the World Health Organization has said, that trans fat should be eliminated worldwide by 2023. It has launched an action package called Replace Trans Fatty Acid, and has provided a lot of action oriented suggestions on how countries can do this. So based on this, what is happening in the other countries? Just want to make a note that Denmark was the first country, even much before the Replace and the WHO came into discussing trans fatty acid. Denmark eliminated trans fatty acid from its food supply. At this time, there are more than 50 countries that have enacted stringent regulation to eliminate trans fatty acid. There are two main approaches for eliminating trans fatty acid. One, either ban the PHVO completely. Canada, Saudi Arabia, Thailand, and USA have taken this approach. While there are other approach is to limit the trans fatty acid in oils, fats, and all the foods. Austria, Chile, Denmark, Hungary, Iceland, Latvia, and other European countries, and South Africa and India is also using this approach. So what are the Indian regulations? The FSSAI has committed for trans fat free India by 2022, when India celebrates its 75th Independence Day, which is an year ahead of World Health Organization, and that's a great move. Even the health minister has stated it in a couple of times. So at present, the regulations are in 2013, FSSAI had enacted a regulation which said not more than 10% of trans fatty acid in all the PHVOs and interestrified oils. In the 2017, this was amended to limit the amount of trans fatty acid to 5%. While there are currently existing draft regulation at FSSAI, hopefully would be enacted soon. These draft regulation limits the trans fatty acid to not more than 3% by 2021 and not more than by 2% by 2022 in all the oils and fats and also foods. So some of the work which is being done by the food safety authorities of various states is Kerala was the first state to start working on this. Kerala tested the oils and fats that are either manufactured or sold and used in the state in 2 districts, in Kozhikode and Ernakulam. And as you can see in this, 1 in 3 of the PHVOs exceeded the current limit of greater than 5%. And while only 1 in 10 has the ideal levels of trans fatty acid, which should be less than 2%. Tamil Nadu has also tested their PHPO samples, but the report of which I think would be made soon publicly. So what needs to be done to declare trans fatty acid? This is the as I hear all other nutrition issues, what we discussed the entire morning, this must be the quickest win what we can achieve in our country. What all that we need to do is to enact the quicker enactment of 2% regulation and enforce this regulation, which requires a lot of self-enforcement by the oil and also the food industry in ensuring the oils and fats that are used in their food has do not contain trans fatty acid or has less than 2% of it. And the upgrading labs for testing and rapid surveillance might ensure the better enforcement of this regulation and replacing trans fatty acid not just with a saturated fat, but possibly as and when feasible, replacing it with the more healthier fats. Yeah, thank you. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, so we move on to the last presentation for the day, and it is by Mr. Raj Kapoor, and it is all about blueberries. So, sir, I please request you to share your presentation. Raj, sir, you have to unmute yourself. You are not audible. Please unmute yourself.
Sorry, now I'm muted. I won't take much. There are 4 slides only. So blueberry is very much available in India country. Now we import 200 tons of blueberry in the country in different formats: frozen, dry, fresh, even concentrate. So it's coming in a big way, and I think most of the bakery, food industry, beverage industry now using the blueberries, and even for cosmetic industry, beauty industry, they also use blueberries. And not much, you all learned people are here. I don't explain all these things. It is of course full of fibers, good source of fiber, good source of vitamin C, anthocyanins. So it is very, very good for different heart health, feeling full, staying regular, keeping cholesterol in check. So it's very well, and for all our full of antioxidants. So this is the last slide, very good for cardiovascular health, brain health, exercise, insulin response, and guts. So this is all about the blueberry. I won't take much time. And if any questions about the nutrition, availability of blueberry, I'm available here. So my message is full of antioxidant, full of nutrition, full of taste, and of course full of flavor, colors, and it gives everything to food. So please use blueberries in food processing area. Thank you very much. Thank you. Actually, I think we can limit the panel session when you unmute the all panelists, and we can limit it for 5-10 minutes, and then we can take the question answers.
Yeah, sure, sir. We have certain questions from the participants also. So we can first have our question answer round, and then we can answer the questions from the participants. Okay, I have got a few questions ready. Like I had certain queries and I would like to ask. So, sir, first from Dr. H.N. Mishra, sir, since you are from the academics, and you are a professor at IIT Kharagpur. So how would you like to guide industry to provide nutritious food? Like, see, people are actually taking so much of processed food these days. So, and the consumption is definitely high for processed food. It is like people have become working housewives. We have less housewives these days, and people don't have much time to prepare food. So yes, they are more inclined towards the processed food. So how would you like to guide industry to provide nutritious food, especially for infants, toddlers, or maybe older age group of people, pregnant women? Like, what all can they do to provide a very nutritious food to them, as they are more prone to various diseases, to immune disorders? Dr. Echin Mishra, sir, I am not sure. I guess I'm not sure if you're here or you have heard my question.
So while Dr. Mishra comes in, let me fill in for him.
Yes.
I think the largest food industry is at home. So whatever we are eating, we are just processing. So I think you're trying to differentiate between packaged and the unpackaged at home,
Yes.
right? So when I was doing the formulations for children to mothers, so the need states are different. For example, when I was designing the mother Horlicks formula way back in 1989, need to understand first from the consumer's perspective what problems they're facing. So while providing a solution, we need to also address some of the concerns they would be having. So Dr. Mishra is back, so I try to fill in for you sir, for some
Oh,
seconds, sir.
there was question for me.
Yes, sir.
Last speaker is not here. What actually my PhD student he came. He was having some thing issue, so I called him. We are at home, so just I was discussing something with him. Ah yes, please continue. I will add up if I am told
Sir,
again.
there was a question that now because of the COVID situation, people are eating more food, the processed food or packaged food, etc. So just trying to clarify. And what are the options available for consumers, for essentially cutting from children to nursing women to seniors? So how should we look at the nutrition in different, from a different lens altogether now?
Hmm. You are the best person to
No,
reply.
sir. So I just to give you an example that when so for every consumer the requirement is different, but the most innovation happens in our kitchen. And I like to add, with permission, one point. Dr. Kavita made a good presentation on protein. But from the consumer's angle, when we were just doing the understanding from the consumer reads, there was a connect with mental, and the outcome was that women at home who were actually engaged in making proteinaceous foods available to the family thought that 80% of the fruits and vegetables are actually good sources of protein. So somewhere the education, the awareness about the right things to the mother is very important, because at least she can take care of 5 people if not more. So I think we need to all share very consumer friendly information for the people who are engaged in the manufacturing of food at home for a meaningful impact at the larger level. From the packaged food industry point of view, anything which I think I leave it to you to, sir, answer the rest of the part.
Yes. Okay. Can I just repeat the question? What was who was the Asni?
Sir, my question was like, how would you like to guide industry to provide more nutritious foods to the infants, toddlers, to the pregnant women, and to the old age group people who are more prone to the various diseases, especially the immune diseases, immune disorders? So, what are your suggestions to the industry to provide them the nutritious food?
Yes, yes. Right. So the one most important thing, as Dr. Singh was already mentioning, you see, every section, their requirements are different. Children have different requirement, elderly people have different requirement, Younger people have different requirements, and even the requirement of the food, that is a normal healthy person, a ill person, anemic person, so there are different requirements. So obviously the and all these, now the focus what you are talking about, wellness food, fortified foods, etc., even the food which we eat, in fact, Indian dietary pattern is very rich in all these regards. But only problem comes where when we cook, when we even for the industry, when the industry processes these foods. So far, they were not bothered about that is what is happening to the constituents present in the food. Okay, how? Take after cooking, it is tasty, it is good, tasty, it is that it has a good shelf life, it has a good presentation value. But really, after, what are the that functional and bioactives, antioxidants, etc., which were present in the food? They are really intact. There are not how much part of that has been. So this responsibility lies, as I am talking about, in the processing food with the food industry, that adopt the novel technologies for processing and packaging. We have to have a shift from the traditional thermal processing technologies to that novel non-thermal processing technologies, maybe that alternate or advanced thermal processing or alternate thermal processing, which, because even non-thermal processing technologies, they are good, they give a good nutritional value, good functional value, but their safety of such processes is still not very, it is questionable. So some balance has to be made by the industry to provide a nutritionally healthier and microbiologically safe food, and accordingly appropriate processing technologies, appropriate packaging technology. As important processing is, equally important is the packaging, that is handling during storage. Your processed food may be good, but and then the consumer awareness, it was telling that whatever industry is responsible, at the same time the consumer should also be take the responsibility, that they, for example, ready to cook food, if they are ready to eat food, if there it is a 5 kg packet and they have opened it and consumed about 100 gram, 200 gram, and the remaining part, if they are not keeping properly in their home, or the pre-cooked food, etc., whatever is there, if they are not properly handling in the home, that might have problems, etc. So these issues, especially, that need to be tackled into by the processing, by the industry, by the consumers, and equally the important is the government regulation enforcing agencies. Regulation. Okay. And one more very, very important, which I will, if your time permits, I would like to tell you that even this, now it has become almost a fashion that everybody, now we find so many foods, immunity boosting food, this healthy IL, trans free. But really the question is, and where I think FSSI people are here and other people, those who are sitting in the government body and in the industry, they have the responsibility to see whether the claim which they are making, really they have the established, okay, there are some immunity boosting ingredient, as a processor I can process, but after the processing, really when we eat it, whether really we are getting that functions which we are claiming, which is that is a big issue, and that must be taken care of seriously by both the industry as well as the government law enforcing agencies.
Sir, I would like to add one point from the industry angle. In fact, in one of the WhatsApp group, this topic was going on. When people weren't listening much, so I had to write to them that now I'm becoming immune to immune claims.
Yeah.
Because the few people doing wrong things have an impact, so industry generally dragged. But you have made a very good point. So any claim which is being made must be fit, legal, and meaningful justified, substantiated.
That's
I'd like to tell you, so when we were doing the fortification, I means if time permits, I can tell you how we used to take this matter. So 1989, sir, when we were doing the fortification of Horlicks, so we designed the mixer. Then we looked at the corners and the types, layers of the food in the mixture. Then we collected the food in the drums, top, middle, and bottom portion were sampled. The samples were tested. Then those drums went to the filling station. So we collected the sample going there. From there, it went into the bottles. Bottles were glass bottles. So we thought that, when the product is reaching the consumer through the trucks, and then, there could be a separation of the vitamins. So I can tell you that for just one vitamin C, for example, first the method weren't available, but we developed. And then we tested, means I used to test and formulate also myself. So 4,000 odd sample testing was done for clearing one product to assure the best before. Those days, the technologies were developing and the analytical solutions were also very weird. So, but now we have so much stuff available. So I would request that anyone who is actually trying to make a claim on the immunity, so we need to look at the end-to-end perspective and also the consumer perspective, and is the claim substantiated?
yeah,
That should be the first thing to be considered.
yeah, that's right.
I just want to add here
Yeah.
that it is very strange. Some of the edible oil companies, they are adding something like vitamin C to oil and calling it an immunity booster. And your oil comes as a, promoting immunity. This is the height of ridiculousness.
Yes.
So I only urge that industry should take advantage to start fortification rather than making such bizarre claims and comments. Thank you.
Deepti ji, what we can probably do, the regulations are out. I think I hear you. So we'll take this point from maybe with Dr. Kapoor also and involving all the members. Maybe it's a time for us to make the guidelines. So
Absolutely.
it is possible that some people are just applying the labels without even understanding. So maybe a kind of a guideline how to make the claim and ensure the claim is maintained. So how do you ensure that the claim is maintained from continuous studies you do to ensure that the products are giving the same benefits claimed? So maybe a time for us to sort of look at it.
That's right,
differently.
Singh Saab. So you are very right. Let me tell you, I think you all are learned members. There are guidelines, there are methods, there are technology. The major problem in our country is the enforcement of the guidelines. Okay, we cannot say industry.
Sir, we have diabetic oil.
Madam,
we have diabetic oil in the country.
That everybody knows that how the vitamin C, vitamin C is a water soluble vitamin, and in IL, how it can mix. But anyway, industry, since they are for the business, so I think it is expected from the industry that they will go for a fair business, not like this misleading, etc. But that is true that even many well-established brands, I will not name here, regularly well-established people, high-profile people, they come on the TV and they give very misleading statements, advertisement, etc., which is scientifically not correct at all. Forget about whether that has been claim has been found or not, or well tested or not. So
here I also want to add that responding to Dr. Mishra, that when I checked about vitamin C, they said they're using a oil-based vitamin C, like you have a cold water soluble vitamin A. So they are using a oil-soluble vitamin C.
Ascorbyl palmitate.
Madam, there are technologies even
this. But it is stupid. It is absolutely stupid to be adding vitamin C in oil. There are many other things to do.
No, what Doc is saying कि इसमें जो constituents हैं उनका functionality अगर antioxidants का है और वो वैसे भी if it is being claimed as vitamin C, so maybe people aren't even aware whether I should make a claim.
Yeah,
So
that's what. So the 2 points basically which I would like to emphasize here. Number one, that yes, the government law enforcing agencies, they have to ensure that these are whatever guidelines etc. They are properly implemented, and those who are guilty, they must be brought to book. Number one. Number two, regarding anyway, what I was other point which I was telling, that is the while as a processor, as a food processor or as a researcher, many a times we do waste. That is, I have subjected this ingredient to this process parameter, etc., and it is expected to give these results. And on the basis of that, we publish paper. Industry, we give the technology to industry. Industry may produce and all those. But actually, whether the science, that is what we are expecting, that is really happening or not, and that can be told only by the clinical trials, maybe in the human system. And it may not be always possible to go for the human system study, but nowadays artificial intelligence and even their human stomach models, etc., are coming up. They are available. So at least that is which can assess the bioavailability of the ingredient, functionality of the new ingredient, etc. So even there is a great need of that type of industry, etc., bringing that instrument, at least if not in human trials, at least such instrumental study is done, which establishes the fact that yes,
cause and benefit assessment.
yeah,
And also, as
uh,
Dr. Kavita mentioned, if you look at the shampoo, I think she brought in a wonderful example. But if I go to the media, or sorry, the e-commerce channel,
sir,
maybe
I
20% stuff is sold from the egg shampoo, etc. So not even, it's meaningless. Sorry, Anish.
Hello,
Ashni.
sir. Can I
sir,
interrupt you? We have several questions for new panelists. Can we stop this topic and
yes, sir, the
go with
discussion
another
is never
question?
end.
yeah, sure.
Okay, so sir, I'll just move on to the next question. My next question is to Mr. Sanjay Puri. Sir, since you are from the flour milling industry, so I just wanted to know like how flour milling industry is committed to help masses by providing enriched flour to various industries, and as in it is finally going to reach the customers, consumers.
So, thank you, Ashni, and thank you, Raj Kapoor Saab. We are in such a wonderful panel today. I've been listening to everybody, and there's been a great learning for me from the talks I heard from uh, Kavita Reddy ji and Dr. Dr. Mishra, and of course, Mr. Sharvinder Pal Singh. And Deepti ji is an old friend. So I would say that thank you very much. This is a good time to discuss health and nutrition while you have this COVID overhang, because people are a little more sensitized about it. And Indian cooking has been, I think, more or less been affected. The kind of way we are living our lifestyles have been affected. And I think we are eating more from home than we were eating earlier, even though processed food industries like Britannia and ITC have done reasonably well in the last few years. So how does you asked me specific questions, but I would like to say one thing about this, because the previous panel had been discussing about industry as a whole. Now, first of all, sir, we have to understand that what is the role of industry? Industry is a part of your community. They are just some entrepreneurs who put in their capital, their time, and their resources together to bring in uh, requirements or whatever the consumer needs or the community needs are at the time, whatever they feel is their requirements. So we can't isolate the community and the industry separately. They are part of your community. What your community asks for is the new. And I think there are aspects now when we talk about educated community asking for nutrition, but a lot of community basically ask for what are their normal diet plan. So you would not find people asking for what you get in USA in India, but what you have in India is also a wonderful culture of Ayurveda. And I think the Indian consumer is very well aware of a whole lot of stuff that we talked about. The inherent knowledge, we can't overlook this. What my grandmother did for her cooking still remains in my kitchen, in my mother's cooking and my wife's cooking and my children's cooking, there is a certain inherent knowledge, heritage that passes on, which is very good. And I think you would look at the kind of, you know, Italy being rated as the finest food. And as the country grows, we'll find Italy in North India and the South India. We are bringing in the best of the, Indian knowledge to the other parts. Besides what you're talking about is a very, high level of awareness in nutrition. So there will be scientists. Dr. Mishra will be there from IIT, and Jamshed Singh ji will be there to talk about nutrition. How can I miss Deepthi talking about, fortification? So all that is going to come in, but the process is very slow. And I think one subject to talk about is what is the bioavailability of the food, various constituents in your food. So who's going to check it while we don't even have labs to check it? So the consumer to tell, okay, this is the food I'm going to pick up because it's got a better availability is going to be based on things as knowledge. And I must also protest one thing when you talked about Horlicks. You see, sir, Horlicks is one thing which is on my hit list, sir, because of the amount of sugar you put in there. So I'm sorry to say this, but also the other thing was trans fat. And I must say, Raj Kapoor ji, very, very courageous of you to bring in trans fat and look targeting of 0% trans fat in a bakery, program. So this is a part of the thing that how we are moving towards the future. Both, I think people are beginning to realize that the sugar is bad for health and the bakery shortenings is something. But I remember, when I was younger, we're talking about 1980s, Vanaspati was such a big hit. Now people were saying that dalda khao, and every Vanaspati used to be dalda. Rath Vanaspati wale ne, बेचारे ने DCM ने बड़ा नाम चलाया, but dalda, Hindustan Lever is the more enlightened groups of companies which came in with dalda trying to replace, God bless you, desi ghee. Now, if we find out now that actually desi ghee is very good, and a lot of people were saying, "Yaar, desi ghee ke parathe khate ho tum to tumhari sehat kharab hoti hai," and things like that. But what actually resulted was that there were other issues involved. So India is not to say that everything is hunky dory now or was earlier. India is the diabetes capital of the world, and Amritsar is the guy who leads it with the puri and chanas and cholas and everything. So where does the flour mill industry face in between? We guys were not doing much, before I think about 80 years. On my association is about 80 years. The Roller Flour Millers Federation of India is 80 years old. So I think about 100 years ago, we came up with the first flour mill in the country. So that उससे पहले तो सब चक्की आटा ही खाते थे आप लोग. तो अभी we are coming back to chakki atta being a very important constituent of your cooking. So if you look at the way this COVID has affected you, this also happens once in 100 years. I believe the last time was 1920. This year this time we've done much better. And despite all the criticism we have, but 1920, maybe Spanish flu was more dangerous, but this COVID thing has also had a lot of silver linings in the way we are looking at our lives and our nutrition and things like that. And I think this is a good time to talk about fortification. So Deepthi ji and we've been working together on fortification, and how does the flour milling industry respond to the challenges? I did mention that chakki atta and packed atta is becoming a bigger source of consumption in the country as compared to cooked food coming in from outside. Now, whether that is good or bad from your perspective is something I would like to say is to be seen over a period of time if industry can respond. But industry normally responds to the aesthetic value of the food. They look at the way it looks, the way it tastes, rather than the nutrition. But I think the enlightenment is something. So don't blame that part of the story to the industry. And I think the one thing we've done overdone, sir, you people are, you people have been talking about government regulation. I must say the one thing this country has overdone is this regulation story. The Food Safety Standards of India is a wonderful organization, but if you look at PFA, the law as in 1950, तो जेल कर देते थे वो छोटी सी चीज पे भी. और अब जब नया FSSAI आई है, we don't trust our industry, we don't trust each other, we don't trust ourselves when we say that. We say that इतना सख्त कानून लगा दो कि वो पूरा ही नहीं होगा, और उसको ऐसा करो कि तुम्हारे जो इंस्पेक्टर वाले हैं उनको भी पता है कि इससे पूरा नहीं होना, तो फिर उसके बाद फिर कुछ तरीके से उसको कर लो. एंड लुक एट द काइंड ऑफ वायलेशंस दैट दे बीन पॉइंटिंग आउट. दे बीन पॉइंटिंग ऑन वायलेशंस लाइक लेबलिंग में, यार तुमने अल्फाबेट में नहीं लिखा, इसका साइज नहीं लिखा, एंड उस पे चलान हो रहे हैं लोगों के. And you're trying to rediscover the entire way, and it beats the thing. So don't trust on, if you don't trust on industry, also expect that you don't trust on the government machinery to be as honest as God. So this is my proposition. The flour milling industry, as the other industry in the world or in the country, will do what the community asks from it rather. And now you people are asking for better nutrition, and it is inculcating in the community, and the community is asking for better nutrition. There's more awareness, and the new education policy is in place, and maybe that is going to be a part of the education also. It has to start from there. You people have to ask for, you see, we have a lot of resistance also to fortification. So it is not so simple. Okay, you just add the fortification and it'll happen. Like you have resistance to immunology. There are people who says I don't want to get inoculated. There are people in USA which are even stronger. So there are going to be certain educational awareness and things like that which are very, very important. So having said this, I think if there is anything else I need to add, I would say flour milling industry will respond to the requirement and come up to the expectations. You must appreciate that unlike in other parts of the world, there were no food riots in the country. We've been able to maintain the supply line chains, and the flour milling industry is also working very closely with other institutions, the government and the NGOs, to try to bring in good nutrition to the community. Yeah. Anything else?
Mr. Puri, I have a hand-folded request. You are leading the Roller Flour Millers Federation of India. Please get at least your members of the, association to start wheat flour fortification, because world over fortification has been able to bring down the levels of anemia. And you know that more than 53% of people in India are anemic. So we've been making this request to you, and from this forum, again, a very humble hand-folded request. Kindly make all flour fortified with iron. This is the need of the hour. Thanks so much.
And hold it, request to you also. You need to work harder. But for me, I'm sold out on this point. You are aware that personally, I thought that it would be a symbolic thing and it would be a good example. So we are selling a very, very big quantity of our food atta today as fortified. In fact,
I know it is not your brand. I'm talking about you leading the
ma'am, there is
federation.
You see, the point is, you've been doing this for so many years, and I'm sure there'll be there's something on inflex point. There's a point when these things turn. So we have to continue to work hard on this. I said it's a great idea. It's a great proposition. And the government needs to also put in a lot of effort. We've been trying with different states that the PDS ka grinding hona chahiye kam se kam fortified. But somehow these things in India is like a big ship. You can't, it's not like bicycle where you give a haath diya, UP mein to gaadi turn ho gayi. India is like a ship. It takes time to turn these things. But you're doing a wonderful job. And I stand by with you and will continue to work personally and with the association to see that Federation will try and put in and inculcate this. And maybe the next webinar, we'll have you there to again tell the people how good it is. And Raj Kapoor ji, you must continue to do this work as well. And
I would like to add on this because fortification, when we started in 2004 with MI, then GAIN, they started with flour industry only, but unfortunately now it has been overtaken by vegetable oil industry. They're doing almost
vegetable oil industry.
But flour milling industry is hardly doing 5%.
Raj Kapoor ji, vegetable oil industry is the worst of the lot, to tell you very frankly. They are the guys who brought in this vanaspati in your country, and to bring in the vanaspati, they said we're going to add vitamin A and D, and iski wajah se bahut acha hai, aur sare desh ko unhone wo margarine aur wo khilai hai aapki. So it is not that I'm not saying that this is better than the farming. Everybody in the country, I said,
hardly 15 are doing it. तो 1500 में 15 लोग कर रहे हैं, तो
900 चूहे मार के बिल्ली हज को चली यार, अब छोड़ो ना, वो सब लोग ऐसे ही है हमारे,
बड़ा ध्यान देना पड़ेगा सर इस चीज पे।
तमाम में सब है। I started off by saying that the industry is a part of your community. It responds to the felt requirement and demand, and there is a part industry will do, and there's a part the government will do. Now, we have been asking the government, why don't you allow the fortified atta? They will give up to be without GST. They will allow a movie. एक वो पिक्चर होगी, उसको वो कर देंगे, टैक्स फ्री कर देंगे।
जीएसटी का बेनिफिट मिल जाएगा। आई थिंक यू नीड टू वर्क बेकरी इंडस्ट्री। सर हेल्दी बेकरी प्रोडक्ट्स का सीजन चल रहा है, लोग हेल्दी बेकरी प्रोडक्ट, तो बेकर जो है वो फोर्टिफाइड आटा मैदा मांग रहे हैं।
मेरी बात सुनो, आपका जो
इंडस्ट्री के साथ
बेकरी वाला है
लिंकेज बनाना
ना,
पड़ेगा सर।
आपका बेकरी वाला अभी 20-30%, 40% तक वो मार्जिन यूज कर रहा है, उसको भी रोको आप।
रोक रहे हैं सर, जब तो हमने ट्रांस फैट की बात करी है सर आज।
Yeah, so good. I just realized, actually, I didn't. That's what I'm saying. Very brave of you to say that.
सर एनीवे हमें फ्लावर मिलिंग के लिए बहुत हम मेहनत करने
राज
की
कपूर
जरूरत है।
जस्ट एक पॉइंट यहाँ पर ऐड करना चाहेंगे, जस्ट इट इज इंफॉर्मेशन that nowadays, in fact, today yesterday, if you see the print and electronic media, there is one technology in my laboratory we have developed and which has been selected for Gyati Award. All right, where we have blended vegetable oils, maintained PUFA-MUFA ratio, omega-6 and omega-3 ratio, and converted into a vegetable oil powder. So when we are talking about this dalda, etc., mixing in the bakery, so that is a very, very good ingredients for bakery industry. Bakery industry, even frozen dessert making industry, to replace the vanaspati as well as to replace the even animal fat. So I hope definitely that the industry will come forward and
Exactly, sir.
Right.
So, Ashni, we can move on to next question because we are already very much late, too much late.
Yes, sir, we can move on to the next question. So my next question is to, we have a chef also in our panelist today. So Mr. Harpavan Singh, sir, since you are associated with ITC and you are working in the culinary department, so my question is like how ITC is working to provide nutritious food to its customers, to its consumers at the facilities. Like how are you working in terms of culinary? How are we providing nutritious food to the customers?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I've been listening to everyone, and we have such experts in this whole panel. From the point of ITC, we are a very diversified company. So we are into FMCG foods, we are into hotels. So we try and leverage hotels expertise into FMCG and FMCG expertise into hotels. And through this diversification, we are able to bring in more initiatives in a faster way. For example, if you look at a fresh food perspective in hotels, we have already started, concentrating more on health and wellness, because as we all know, health and wellness is such a large category today. And it all starts, like Mr. Sharminder Pal Singh had said, that the biggest industries are kitchens. So that is where, first things need to start. And then it will trickle down to the processed food or the FMCG packaged food industry. So if you look at our hotels and everywhere now, we have started concentrating on health and wellness, taking inspiration from our age-old Ayurveda principles. So, we have started doing research on Ayurveda as to what is Ayurveda about. We've seen that because of what India went through in the last 70 years, that is the reason why Ayurveda had almost lost its significance somewhere. So that is why these new grains and all that are being used, we call them the forgotten grains. Somehow we call this the whole forgotten Ayurveda as the forgotten science, which we need to bring back into our lives, and we are rooted to it. So that is what we have started at a very nascent hotel level, which is Fresh Kitchen, and from there we are trickling it down to our FMCG. We are also, since, our chef strength is also part of IFCA, which is the Indian Federation of Chefs Association. So through that, we are trying and now propagating it to all the chefs in the country and the restaurant industry to bring in these practices. slowly. And with the increasing demand in the consumers, we have no other way out to survive but to get into this health and wellness category. So that is why a lot of initiatives by ITC in terms of health and wellness has been started. We have things like locavore, we have things like slow food movement, locavore in the sense that using local and seasonal ingredients, propagating that, and even our menu cards, our menus are being based on ritus, which is seasonal. So slowly through this, we are, kind of, you have to impart knowledge also to the consumers, because the world will look at us for health and wellness, because we had solved this science and understood this science 1,000 years ago. We just need to dig in. We just need to bring that research back. We just need to, all of this is there in our Vedas, you know and if we get into that, maybe we will be, I think we should have been the pioneers to get into the health and wellness. Haldi, like I see haldi, turmeric is being used in our households. mm, I don't know, from time unknown. And yellow milk has suddenly become the most trending thing in the Western world. And that kind of makes you feel as if, that your thing is being propagated all over the world, but we are not marketing it well, I think. So that is how, so ITC, as usual, as the way our whole process goes, where we are first percolating into the fresh kitchens and then we pull it into our FMCG. So for example, if you look at our atta category also, we are getting into millet flours, we are getting into multi-millet flours. So we are trying to propagate the millet, which is again, which is the biggest forgotten grain today. And so this is how, we don't want to get into the quinoas of the world, which is not ours, rather propagate our millets. So yeah, this is what I would say, that this is how we are contributing towards the whole health and wellness issue.
Thank you so much, sir. Okay, I do have lot many more questions with me, but I guess we are running so much ahead of time. So let us first take over the questions from the participants, because we have a huge list of questions from participants. So I'll just read on the questions one by one, and I request all the panelists to please respond to these questions. So first question is by Mr. Prasad. That does junk food decreases immunity?
May I answer this question?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Junk food as such, like I'm going to equate it to any junk food, either has too much oil or too much sugar. And recently, and that contributes to increase in weight. And there is a study which says in the US, if there were 1,000 people who were given flu vaccine, and the people, or for those who were with healthy weight, the flu vaccine worked very well. But those who were overweight and obese, they were very prone, even after taking the vaccine, they were very prone to flu and other flu-like other infections. So junk food is generally causing overweight and obesity problems, and that's how it decreases immunity. So that would be the major cause of junk food reducing immune power of a person.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, so the next question is by Ella Vinya. That is, can you suggest anything for youngsters? I guess she wants to ask about maybe food choices.
Shall I?
Yeah, sure, ma'am.
Okay, when you're thinking of youngsters, like when you also asked about toddlers and infants, if they are below 6-7 years old, you have to remember that the more they don't have the ability to eat a lot of food, and also not a lot of times. We like different, having too many things and all, but they don't. So you have to formulate food or cook food which gives you more things in small amounts.
Like if you're making khichdi, your khichdi will have rice, dal, add some vegetables to it also. And I don't remember the speaker, but they said about cooking reduces vitamins and all. So 2 fruits a day would do the trick. So I mean, in a 30 seconds, I think this is what I can say. It's a huge subject for youngsters.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, next question is by Mr. Sandeep Jain. What are the ways to reduce trans fat, and which oil is best suited with less trans fat?
Yeah, I guess that question is for me, Ashni.
Yes.
Hi, thanks for the question. So as I mentioned in the presentation, so all the vegetable, there are no natural vegetable sources for trans fatty acid. They are only present in very small quantity in the natural sources from the animals, which is meat and milk products. So therefore, any vegetable oil that you would be using should not contain trans fatty acid per se, although the refining process of vegetable oil, which when they heat the oil to a very high temperature, may add a very small percentage of trans fatty acid, but it is generally never above the 2% limit, what is considered as safe. So it should be fine. So any oil, what you would use at home, any vegetable oil, which is not a hydrogenated vanaspati, is completely fine at trans fat free. However, my greater concerns about trans fatty acid is not from the food cooked at home, but the food you would consume outside. So you would never know whether that food has trans fatty acid and what was the fat used in it. If it is a labeled packaged food, there are labels, the trans fatty acid declaration on the labels, like what is the amount of trans fatty acid. Although it is not very intuitive to understand that, hopefully the upcoming front of package labeling regulation would make it much more easier. But if non-labeled packaged food and the food on the streets, one would never know how much of the trans fatty acid is in there, because we don't know the ingredients what the people use to make those foods. Yeah.
Can I add?
Okay.
I like
I can also add.
Yeah, I want to say one thing, that in India we don't use beef tallow or meat tallows. So actually the vegetable oils in India naturally were all very good, right? And if you're looking for an oil which is good for you, for your health point of view, refined is, like she said, a good one, but also look at the oil which is naturally available. So if you're in North or if you're in Bengal, mustard oil is a good option. Similarly, if you're in the coastal, the coconut oil is also good. There are some differences in the qualities there, but I would say the locally available oil, which your cuisine has been cooking, your country's, your mother's, grandmother's have been cooking, is all very good. And now also look at, the standards are, you look at egg mark is a good option to look at in your food. If you look at that, then that means they're normally from a standard company. Look at the company which is producing it. So this is the one little addition I would like to put in a guideline for you. And all fat and all vegetables oil in India, believe me, much better than what you do in America. America, may they also do blended oils. In India, the blending is never allowed. It's permitted only in refined now, but we were never allowing any blended oils and raw oils. So that way, you are a much, much safer country. We've lost our ways in between somewhere, but we are a very, very healthy country with our heritage. Happy. Thank you.
Yes, if you permit the organizer, so I will also like to add something, of course, on the similar line which Mr. Puri has emphasized. Number one, regarding animal fat, there is not much issue of trans fat or cis fat because they are the saturated fatty acids. It is the major problem in the vegetable oil, cis and trans. And almost all natural triglycerides, they are cis. But the problem becomes when they are heat treated. So just to say that if the refined oil, they are completely free from trans fatty acids, I don't think that might be a very good statement. But anyway, that depends upon what is the extent of heat given and other thing, processing condition, etc. So what I would like, the question was to how to reduce the trans fat, etc. So Mr. Puri has very rightly pointed out, we should go more and more towards the natural oils, maybe filtered oil, double filtered oil, or avoid thermal processing, avoid heating of the oil. Because if the oil has been heated, trans fatty acids generation cannot be avoided. So even some people, some industries, they try to add that is heated oil with the natural oils, etc. Or even there are technologies for the refining, maybe membrane technologies, even such other technologies where filters, appropriate filtration, etc. can be used to remove the impurities what we are doing by the conventional refining processes. So that may be the, yeah.
Can I say that also when you go to halwai stores and वो जो पूड़ियाँ तल रहा होता है, how many times does he throw away that oil? That oil is used again and again and again, and it becomes carcinogenic before he throws it away. So look at that aspect. You are not going to be very unsafe when you're doing it at home.
That's all right, Mr. Puri. Even halwai, the pakoda, etc., etc. That's what we have been talking. But when now the science is coming into, the science has to speak with some at least basis. So obviously, yes, I love pakoda, I love puri. All right. और जितना मिले हम पकौड़ी खाते हैं, but I know that yes, that pakodi which has been fried, definitely it will have more amount of trans. But that's where the immunity system comes into play. That at least our body, I will say, but at least my body has adapted over the years to those conditions. आप देखिए, हम और आप जो है करते रहते, हमारे बच्चे गरीब के गांव में देखिए जाके कितने लोग क्या है, उनको ना तो कभी ठंडक लगती है ना तो कभी कुछ भी खाते हैं. आज कोविड के बारे में इतना हम कर रहे हैं, we have not got any report of any beggar, street beggar whether they have been affected by COVID. So that is where the immunity system comes into play. But of course, when the science is there, we should take the help of the science. That's all. Thank you.
Sir, just want to make the comment on the COVID and beggar. Beggar किस चीज से मरते हैं किसी को पता नहीं होता है. I'm a doctor. I'm just saying that we just don't know the cause of death in the beggars. Okay, we don't know what we are dying of.
Madam, COVID, again, we are saying that there is no medicine. But I don't know how that out of 40 lakh infected or 24 lakh infected, about 20 lakh has been recovered. So that is what the question is. That is at one time we say that there is no medicine. Again, we are telling that recovery rate is better. So not many things are clear at the point. We are just trying. Okay, ऐसा हो रहा, वैसा हो रहा, ये हो रहा, वो हो रहा. That's.
So, sir, that defeats the entire purpose of the webinar. But I have to tell you that one answer I can give you is if you look at Amritsar.
Yeah.
Amritsar is India is the diabetes capital of the world, and the kind of cooking they do and the food they eat in Amritsar is the diabetes capital of the country. So I would say you can't just write it off by immunity cannot be built by eating trans fat, or you cannot be immune to this. So there is a limits to what immunity can do. And I would say, this a lot of this gyan comes from, people sending you these WhatsApp messages, कि कितने beggar मरे हैं. You see, you must take all these things with a lump of salts. We can't accept everything that they say in the, WhatsApp is right. And we have to believe that science does play a role, and you cannot be eating trans fats, and you can't get away with it.
No, that's true. That I fully agree with you. I gave you.
That's right.
Ashni, I wanted to add 2 points. One, on the natural trans fat definition, the regulations will now reflect, which was a vacuum before. So this is also in line with the global WHO approved definition. Number 2, for the purpose of reduction of trans fats, the quick thumb rule is that look at whether you're using hydrogenated fat. If you're using, there's an opportunity to replace it with the, for example, Dr. Mishra has fat powder. If the matrix is demanding fat powder, now even that is available, which wasn't the case before. Or look at the oils which are locally available and relatively cheaper rather than making the formulations costly. So look at the more from the consumer angle also, that when we are reducing, we need to also ensure that we stay more local as far as possible, don't add the cost, and there are solutions available locally also. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we need to conclude the session, sir, because we have some more questions, but we can pass on this question to you. And but I request last session and concluding remarks by Dr. M.M. Krishna. Dr. M.M. Krishna is well known in the industry, and he's a former MD for Modern Food Industry Limited and has been worked very closely with protein industry. And I request Dr. Krishna to please conclude the webinar. Uh,
Thank you, Raj. I think today it is, in fact, an intellectual feast for us to get so much of knowledge and wisdom from such learned speakers we have today in the panel. I think we have covered a broad cross-section of topics of current interest and current importance to all of us and to the country at large, covering from COVID relevant nutrition and health areas and fortification areas, and way we can really regulate our foods in terms of regulating them in respect of sugar, salt, and other nutrients which are now required to be reduced. And as Shaminder Pal Singh was mentioning, we should attempt to do it in a gradual way, but not in a drastic way to, impact the market and lose the consumer aspirations in the marketplace. I think a gradual approach is what we call for, and it's indeed a very great knowledge that we have today in this platform, right from protein to fortification to other areas relevant to COVID related foods and nutrition areas. Dr. Kavita had very appropriately brought out the need for not merely protein nutrition, but protein quality in nutrition. And it's very relevant and appropriate at this stage, because today there's a lot of awareness on the COVID-related nutrients and nutraceuticals for maintaining better health and improving the immunity status. Protein plays a very central role in that process. And I often remember Professor M.S. Swaminathan saying that we in India are living in poverty amidst plenty. We talk of protein-related problems like stunting, undernutrition, um, under 5 mortality rate, and so many other issues related to protein nutrition, while we are living in a country which is the 5th largest protein producing country in terms of soybean. In terms of dairy, we are number 1. So we have to address our resources, how we can logically and strategically divert our resources to meet the current and impending needs of our people. Protein nutrition is very central to addressing our current problem of COVID, because the antibody production, improving the immunity levels are directly related to the protein levels in the body. Yeah, we have a production of 10 to 12 million tons of soybean with 40% of protein in it, of the highest quality of protein. But where are we consuming it? We, as a food, we are consuming not more than even 500,000 tons in terms of food, be it soya milk or tofu or TSP or whatever products that we talk about. Our consumption is phenomenally low. On the other hand, we are diverting more and more of our soybean for feeding our poultry, feeding our aqua resources, feeding the animals, which is a very expensive and a the conversion ratios are so adverse. We are converting our good protein into the same quality of protein through a very wasteful cycle. In the process, we are not only depriving our population of good quality protein, but we are creating an environmental problem of high carbon emissions through this meat process. So I think all of us, the industry, the academia, the policymakers, every one of us should really commit ourselves to using our resources judiciously and use them for maximum benefit, nutritional benefit to the population here. I was roughly looking at, when we talk about 10 to 12 million tons of soybean production, which translates to about 400 million tons of protein, that we produce 4 million tons of protein. Where is it going? It is not going for either for infant nutrition or child nutrition or adult nutrition or geriatric nutrition. So we should really commit to use more and more of our affordable resources of nutrients like protein for the betterment of our people and to help people consume more to prepare themselves to face the infections that are now prevailing in all over the world. This is only a beginning. COVID is only a beginning. I think we can look for many, many other COVIDs in times to come. So we should build our health. We should help people build their health with good nutrition, be it protein, divert all our protein for human nutrition, make the foods fortified in terms of at least those micronutrients which are important for immunity building, vitamins A and D, which Deepthi was mentioning, is very, very important. And I think all the message that we can take from today's deliberations is, let us optimize, let us consolidate and put everything that we have in the resources for the wider use of, for the benefit of all our population. I think it's a very, very useful seminar. Dr. Shankar has really given the guideline and the path forward for us. And we have really conveyed the best of our knowledge to the people who participated in the seminar. And by word of mouth, this message will percolate to so many others in the country and all of us will benefit. Thank you very much, Raj, for this opportunity. Thanks all the panel members for the great wisdom and knowledge that they have given us today. And Professor Mishra, Shaminder Pal Singh, Mr. Puri, Mr. Raj Kapoor, everyone, Deepthi Gulati, Dr. Kavita, everyone in the panel, I must profusely thank them for having kindly accepted the invitation from Mr. Raj Kapoor and conveyed the message very effectively and very forcefully and very meaningfully to the people across. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much to everyone. And I think it was a very double session. We were supposed to finish this session by 12:30. Now it is 12 to 10 p.m. So it is double time session. I think never, because of so many learned people, interesting sessions. So I would like to tell you this session was going live stream on YouTube, Facebook. So thousands of people have seen this session, have taken the advantage of this session. And this we can share the recording of the session to you also. So maybe you can share with your team and your people. And thank you once again for being patient for such a long time. And we'll keep doing this program as Sanjay Puri sir told. We will continue to do more and more sessions with you. And thank you for all support, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good day
Thank
to
you
you.
all.
Yes, thank you. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.